Madison City Council meeting for August 1st, 2022 to order. First up, Pastor David Butler, lead us in our invocation. Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you bow your heads with me, please? Precious Heavenly Father, we pause to thank you for this great and marvelous day. For this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Lord, we thank you for a place to live where, according to our roads and streets, where everybody wants to be. We thank you for the ability to live, to work. We thank you, Lord, for our good neighbors and our good citizens of our communities. We thank you, Lord, for the beauty of such a place. We ask, Father, that you would guide our hearts and minds in this meeting tonight. And may everything we do be pleasing unto you is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Lance is on vacation, and Webb is our acting city manager, but he's going to have to play hurt tonight. So he's going to join us via the internet. Webb, are you with us? There he is. All right. I just want to let everybody know that, and also Webb, I do have my city phone, so if you want to weigh in without raising your hand on there, let me know. First up is the agenda approval. Is there any changes or anything that needs to be done? Well, then I'll
make a motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion, I have a second. Take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. We do not have any special recognitions or presentations, so we're going to move right into our public comments. I just want to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes. At about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I'll politely ask you to wrap up your thoughts. And it's not your only opportunity to speak. At the very end of tonight's meeting is another opportunity for public comment to make comments on some of the things we may have done or not done up to this point. These comments need to be on either agenda items or things that concern you that aren't on the agenda. The only thing they cannot be about is we do have a couple public hearings tonight, and there'll be another opportunity to speak specifically on those public hearing issues. With that being said, I'll look to this side of the room. Is there anyone that has anything they'd like to come up, make any comments? Middle of the room. Come on up, ma'am. When you come up, hit the button. State your name and your address for the public record.
My name is Lisa Mason, and I live at 211 Durango Road, Destin. I also want to let you know that I'm on the Holiday Isle Improvement Association board. So some of these things are concerns that we have for the Holiday Isle. The first one, though, is basically as an owner on Holiday Isle that is blessed to live on the harbor and get to watch everything that goes on out there, I have a lot of concern, and it's been brought to my attention by neighbors that we have an awful lot of live aboard kind of vessels out there right now, and they're not moving. They've been there for a while, and we really don't know where the waste that's in these things are going, and there was recently an advisory just put out about the water quality. So we have people that are living out there, and they're staying well beyond 30 days. They're not moving their boats, and it's a hazard. The other thing is that the boat that sank, that one is really a problem. There's nothing there to identify it. You just have to kind of know about it, and we have so many people that come around. I worry that we're going to have another incident, and then 2 boats out there that are sank. So I don't know who handles that. In addition on that, on the harbor, there's a vendor boat out there that is very precarious, and I'm worried that it's going to sink in the first storm that we get. It shouldn't be docked out there. It's got 4 pontoons, and it's bowing in the middle. Plus, there's a very huge, have anything to do with that, but I wanted to bring that up. So in regards to the Holiday Isle, we're here to ask you, and thank you for letting me speak, but we're here I'm here to ask you that we have an awful lot of unpermitted construction that's going on, and we're working really hard to identify it, to notify the proper authorities and things, but we really, I think where the problem occurs is that there's not enough inspections going on, and a lot of times we find out about something that's been done after the fact. It's been built, it's not allowed to have been built, but it was, and we just need the city to help us in trying to address those issues. The other one is we have an awful lot, we've identified and turned in about 20 non-registered short-term rentals. As a taxpayer, I don't like the fact that they're not paying their taxes, you're not collecting money, and they're not always abiding by the short-term rental rules. So anything you guys can do to help us with that, we would be very thankful. And the last thing is down at Noriega Park, with the parking down there, I know you all have heard this, and you've heard it from other people, but it's really becoming a dangerous situation down there. It's not 24/7, but there are peak hours where you have cars that are just backed up, and they're blocking the residents at East Pass Tower and all the way down to Waterview, and these people are complaining, they're contacting me as the board president, but they're having to drive on the side of the road, the wrong side of the road to get into their condo, and the police have been called to go down there, but they really don't move them along, and I don't know what you all can do about that, but we're very concerned about emergency vehicles. You know, somebody down there and the emergency vehicles can't get by these 10 or 15 cars that might be backed up. So I know I have to wrap it up. So I tried to turn on my Yankee and talk real fast, and I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
And like I said, you have another opportunity if anything comes up that you'd like to add to your conversation today.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is anyone else over here in the center part of the room? Come on up. Yeah, we talked about it a little later.
Thank you, Mayor. Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I wasn't going to speak, but I just wanted to mention something. I actually had a neighbor who asked me if the pump was working. They said that the water quality in the harbor had not been what it's been, so I don't have the answer to that, and I haven't made it to a Public Works meeting, so I thought that I would address that here. And maybe that's it. Oh, no, I did want to say one thing. I do know that we have a new code compliance director. I'm looking forward to meeting her, and that is why I have been quiet, because I'm looking forward to meeting her. Thanks.
You're welcome. Michael, status on the pump?
Sure, and forgive all this coughing I've been doing over here. I had a candy in my mouth and about swallowed it the wrong way. But the harbor pump, we did have an issue with one of the contactors. It has all been repaired and is back running its normal schedule.
All right. I think I've noticed the same water quality issue, and I'm not too sure it's just the pump. It's July, and it's just, water's hot, and a lot of algae in the water and stuff like that, so it's a combination probably of the pump not working there for a couple weeks, and just, it's July and 100 degrees. On those boats, Mr. Smith asked about the boats. Unfortunately, in the state of Florida, well, really, I think it's all over the country, when it comes to sunken vessels and salvaging and stuff like that, you have to deal with maritime law. And so it's really difficult. All we can do as a city is contact the FWC and the Coast Guard and report them, and then the FWC really has the burden of declaring them derelict vessels. They have to wait a certain amount of time for the owner to give them opportunity to float it, get it out of there. If not, then they can do it. In the past, if somebody tried to salvage a vessel, they could salvage it, get it, put it on dry land, dry dock it, and the owner could come and take it, and there's nothing they can do about it. No compensation or anything like that. So now there's protocols for it, so they give them opportunity, and after that, they can haul those things and get rid of them. So, I'm pretty sure, I'll check with Lance, but I'm pretty sure that we had already contacted FWC about the sunken vessels. And the issue of boats, liveaboards in Destin Harbor is something probably this council needs to take up. We have control of our waterways, but we've never designated the Destin Harbor a designated anchorage. And when you do that, it gives you, as a city, a lot more control over outside of the mandatory requirements by FWC. As of right now, if a boat's in mooring for 30 days, he has to go out into the open navigable waters and then come back and start his 30 days again. So it's kind of a loophole, but that's all they have to do. So they can stay there. They just keep doing it over and over and over again. So if you have
So
an
can we
anchorage,
change it?
if
Could
you have
we-
an anchorage, then you can have more control over it. You can make other rules outside of what's required by the state. So that's something we can bring up, look into at a later date.
I know she mentioned many things, but the one particular vessel, as of last weekend, it's been, I think it's just the bow. There's, the railings of the bow are just barely above the water, and it's been at least 5 or 6 weeks, and somebody marked it one time just on their own, and then it came off, but is there nothing that can be done in the intermediary just to mark it? Because there's not a light, there's not anything on it, and it's literally just about 2-ish feet above the water.
Well, probably the best thing to do is for our city manager to contact that WC and see about getting it marked. Because I drive by it every day too, and you're right. The only thing left showing now is a rail, and you can see it real good if the birds are sitting on it. But if they're not, they're not. Dewey?
Yeah, I would just say we can mark it. And we probably should, because if we wait on FWC, they have to go through all the rules and regulations that Gary was talking about. Just to put a buoy on it, I don't know how we can really run afoul, and it is, the harbor is completely within the city limits. So,
Well, with that being said, Mr. Destin, I have a buoy, and I go by that thing every single day, and I'll put a buoy on it myself personally.
very good.
And I'll do it tomorrow.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Webb.
Yes, and just so you know, we have been in contact with Okaloosa County on these issues, so we are in cooperation with them, and they are going through the process. But in the interim, you were correct. I think we can find some measures to help remedy that situation.
Thank you, Webb. Yeah, I was pretty sure that everyone was aware of the sunk boat.
What about the one that is precarious? 4 pontoon boats, it looks like it's sinking. Is there any way for us to verify if that boat's being managed, maintained, if it is about to sink? Do we have any rights to go to that owner that's in Anchorage on that?
That's just, we're really hamstrung without the designated anchorage designation. Webb, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yes. If Ms. Abear, if you can send me the information of the boats that you're talking about or boat, we will double check to make sure that it is in process, and if it's not, we will address it. If we can address it.
I'll get you an email with the information from the HOA member that's here today.
Thank you.
One other comment, Mayor. Alex over at the county has been spearheading the removal through the county with the state of Florida. Takes him about 90 days, but he's moved more than one this year, so we need to contact him and see.
Yeah, Webb, make note of that, and reach out to Alex Fogg tomorrow and tell him what our situation is, and he'll get on it really quick.
That is our point of contact, and that's who we're in cooperation with, and we'll be happy to talk with them.
All right, thanks, sir. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period, and we'll move right along. Myself and our city attorney and Webb, when he steps in, we'll kind of team up together to get through the agenda. So right now, we'll move to item number 3, the consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
I have a motion, I have a second. Approval of the consent agenda. Take it to a vote. There we go. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, first up, city manager's report. Webb, you want to weigh in here, or can we just turn it over to our city manager, or our finance director, and spare you the agony?
I'll be happy to introduce the item. First up for tonight is part of our annual budgeting process that is outlined in state statutes. Staff is requesting to set the city's tentative millage rate for FY23, as well as associated budget public hearing dates. Tonight, we do have our finance director, Ms. Crystal Strickland, who will provide some additional details about that item tonight as well as the process ahead. Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, council members and mayor. So this evening, we're requesting to establish the tentative millage rate for the fiscal year 2023 and to set the public hearing dates for the budget adoption. So what we're recommending is that we adopt 1.615, which is the same millage rate that we've had for just over 7 years straight now. This is effectively an increase in taxes. It is 12.22% higher than the rolled back rate of 1.4391 mils. That is the rate that would bring in the equivalent amount of revenue as we brought in this past year, given the increase in property values around the city. So keeping the millage rate at 1.615, that will bring in about $9.8 million to the general fund for operations, which will help us. As some of you know, our personnel costs have increased just over 30% this year, including the insurance, health insurance for our employees. So that will help with that. Overall, total citywide, that would we would bring in, we budget 95% of that, so that would be it's about $10.7 million, with 800,000 of that, actually 900,000 of that going to our CRA districts. So we're requesting to adopt the millage rate of 1.615 mils, and we would like to set the first public hearing for Thursday, September 8th at 5:30 p.m. This is a date that it's after Labor Day, and it's also allows our citizens to attend the Okaloosa County and Okaloosa School Board public hearings for their budgets. And then we would have our second public hearing at the regular council meeting on Monday, September 19th. So with that, I'm here if you have any questions.
Mr. Bagney.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council set the tentative millage rate for ad valorem taxes at 1.6150 mils, which is 12.22% more than the rollback rate of 1.4391 mils, and confirm the date and times of the public hearings for the FY 2023 budget as September 8th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in this chamber, and September 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in this chamber.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Crystal's kind of filled us in. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Crystal before we go to a vote?
I would just remind people that we do have a fourth meeting for the budget scheduled on Thursday. Okay, so if you have any questions about the budget, you can come then.
Yeah, that's August 11th, Thursday, August 11th at 5:30 p.m. right here in this room. And
And it's
please
a
come and
workshop.
speak your minds, yes.
That's right.
We'd love to hear from everybody.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Seeing no further comments, let's take it to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, up next. Webb?
Yes, up next is our capital project management provider recommendation. Our grants and project manager, Mr. Jeff Kozad, will help introduce this item for us. Jeff, are you there?
Sure am. We did only receive one submission for the capital project management RFQ that was recently released. Fortunately, it's a company that we're already familiar with, which is Matrix Design Group. Matrix is currently doing our facility needs and condition assessment, and our experience so far has been very positive with them. Capital project management services will be used on our larger capital projects. A variety of services can be delivered, including design services, RFP development, bid evaluation, management of construction and post-construction, and program management. The primary services will likely be construction management and construction engineering and inspection. Other tasks associated with that may include inspection and acceptance of work items, a review and approval of pay applications, and change orders. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Tracy.
Mayor, I move to direct city manager and city attorney to negotiate with Matrix Design Group Incorporated for capital project management services and report back to the council with a contract to consider.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Mr. Destin.
Mr. Mayor, I know that I had kind of sponsored going in this direction, and we were calling it construction management. I just want to make sure this is the same concept that we were going forward, and it appears as I read through it, it is staff. Is that the case?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'll just chime in, Dewey. It was the RFQ documents that you reviewed and were modeled after the school district's RFQ documents.
Very good, thanks.
Mr. Bagby.
Yeah, I don't believe, y'all's response to Mr. Destin notwithstanding, what we just said. And what my understanding was that we were looking for, based on our experience at the park, was a construction manager. That's not what we actually got here, okay? We have not a single person, and this is a very talented field, very talented team. I've known Sal for 15 years probably. Great company. He has great folks working with him, and they do a lot of amazing things, and I've worked on them on other projects and to include with the city. That's not my issue. My issue is we have a continuing services contract that basically does this. We have engineering firms that already provide this service for us, don't they? The answer is yes, so it's okay, you can say.
They do. I know at the time this was put together, we envisioned having a company that could come in and see a project all the way through from the very beginning to the very end. But this would also allow us to do more of an à la carte presentation where we could pick and choose the specific tasks we need them to do on the specific projects at the specific time. So it would be, you know, we wouldn't have to be all-inclusive. It could be one, you know, piece of work at a time and isolated.
And I understand that. The problem is we already have engineering firms, we're going to hear from one of them tonight, that do this work for 90% of what's hit. And the shortcoming we identified was that Mr. Buckingham helped us with on the park was we need a construction manager. Okay? None of these guys, ladies, are true construction managers that will be here on a day-to-day basis. The closest one on this team is in Colorado. Okay? And he's not going to be down on that job site every day making sure that the steps are the right height or the pilings are the right depth or the whatever. This is a great, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but we need to tell all those other engineering companies, hey, you're not getting any more work from us because now we're going to sole source this to the Matrix organization, which I'm not sure that was the intent. The intent, as I understood it, and I may be wrong, was to get construction management. Not a single person on this team, and there's a lot of PEs, and I have enormous respect for PEs, but there's not a single one that's PMP certified, okay? Is certified as a project manager. Now, they've all probably been involved in projects or been involved in project managers. I just think we didn't get what we thought we were going to get, or at least we didn't get what I thought we were going to get. I may be the only one, but these aren't folks that are going to sit down there and make sure the general contractor is not dorking up on a project. You know, my example would be the Crosstown Connector. What are they going to do on the Crosstown Connector? They're going to fly the guy in from Colorado once a week to make sure that whatever we decide to do there is getting done properly. I think, A, we need to tell the other engineering firms that we have on a continuing contract, this is the direction we want to go. Do you want to bid on it? Matrix may end up winning that, or they may get into the fill. I'm surprised that they're not already in that rotation, to be honest with you, because they're a very good company. But there is no project management expertise here to the level that we were looking for.
Mr. Smith.
So I'll just chime in real quick, because I agree with Jim based on Matrix's response that what they have bid to us may not be exactly like what the school district does. I do think that perhaps in the negotiation process, we could look with Matrix, if we were so directed, and see if we can come to terms that would be agreeable to the council for more of a construction management-oriented approach. But, based on the bid documents, I share Jim's concerns. But, of course, if we can't come to an agreement on a contract, a construction manager, Lance and I will come back to the city council and say, look, Matrix was not, we did not have a meeting of the minds as to the exact services they were bidding on. We can go back out to RFQ, we can try and proceed in some other route. So I still think it might be worth it to council to go ahead and adopt the recommended motion and let us try and work through it. Otherwise, we'll take any other direction.
Yeah, and Kevin, before you speak, they were the only ones to respond, first and foremost, and I'm sure a company of their size and expertise can always add more personnel, including a specialist, if it's worth their while, if the contract works out that way. So there is some flexibility there, and I think that's what Kyle's bringing up, that that can be part of the discussion.
All I'm saying is, at least if you enter the motion tonight, we have the opportunity to explore that further. If you don't take that action, we'll of course go with whatever action you direct us to do, but we might be back at square one. At least if we take some sort of action forward here, Lance and I will be able to explore that further.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. Since this was the second time that we put the bid out, did they come to us when we went out the second time, or did we go to them to request them to submit this?
The first time it was released, they were aware it was released, but they found out at such a late date that they weren't able to put together a submission. So when the second time it was released, I did notify them at that time that it was going out, so they were more prepared.
And then, considering this started from Mr. Destin and his recommendation about his experience with the school board, are we not the same level playing field as the school district to be able to contact the Rolodex of groups that they potentially had or were using to also request their interest?
The group that they're using right now, the school district, was a bid holder the first time around and just chose not to do a submission.
Okay. And then on Mr. Bagby's points, when I was looking through the bid or the proposal, they have a handful of people listed in Niceville and Pensacola and in this area. Are those just not the specific people that he's thinking about who's going to manage a project? They're just more like engineers maybe or something? Or are they local?
I know that they have some local assets. I was told by Sal during an email today that they do have a registered architect, a licensed general contractor, and a number of professional engineers that all have construction management experience and are qualified to do that task as well.
And then lastly, let's just throw one out there. Calhoun Park project, let's just say we were going to want to kick that off in 3 months from now. Would this company be able to take that project from where we are today, which is nowhere, and run the whole project if we hired them?
I believe they would. We're going to need to do, establish a contract first with them.
Sure.
And identify the scope of work.
But is that the intent, as a company like this, to do that?
The intent would be that if we were so inclined that they could, run it, the whole thing from the, even the bidding and the
Sure.
finalization of the RFP to, the construction management piece and the construction closeout.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think Mr. Bagby's concerns are legitimate, but as Kyle said, we can go and talk to them and find out if they can answer all those questions. As it stands now, I'm not so sure that I would vote to enter into a contract, but if we don't talk to them, we will not know. So, but he's exactly right. We need management people who can run the construction site.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with it. Why don't we at least give them a chance? They were the only one that came in with the RFQ. Let's let them tell us what they can and can't do and tell them what we want them to do. And if they're not able to work it, then we just go seek out maybe some other opportunities. But at this point, they're the only ones that came to the table with anything. So at least let's try and see if we can get something that we need done through Kyle and Lance working with them. We can always say no, but I mean, right now, we don't have anything, so something is better than nothing to at least find out what they can accomplish.
Mr. Braden?
I just had a lot of the same concerns, and I was just kind of curious as why the council would, I mean, staff's always asking for direction, and we give them direction, and then they bring this back. This is not what, I don't believe we asked for, and then we brought back a motion, recommended motion to approve it. So, I mean, we're going to give some more direction tonight, where's that going to go?
I will say that the RFQ documents that were released they were the same as the RFQ documents, basically, that the school board released, which is for construction management services. And Dewey worked with staff, and we looked through those together, and, I mean, I think we had a meeting of minds there that they were the same, essentially. So, I mean, I can't speak for Matrix as to what their understanding is. We would be happy if you do adopt the recommended motion to work with them and see if construction management is something they would, in fact, be able to provide. Or if not, Lance and I will come back to council and say, look, Matrix was a little confused. They wanted to provide more pre-construction services. We're looking more for a construction manager with perhaps some pre-construction services sprinkled in. I just don't think this is going to work. And then we'll get more direction from y'all. And if you want to go some other way, we'd be happy to do that.
Well, I still don't know why we were brought this back. Why didn't staff come back and say, we got one, but it's really not what you guys asked for. We'll keep looking. You want us to keep looking or what?
That's what we're doing.
No, that's not what we did. That's what we're trying to do now. That's why I'm asking, why are we doing this tonight? Why didn't we get what we asked for to start with? I mean, I'd much rather the staff come back and say, we just couldn't get anybody. We found an engineer or somebody that will work with them and see if they can find somebody or hire somebody to get what you guys want. I mean, I'd much rather do that than approve something tonight, work a contract, and then try to figure out if they can actually do it or not, or I just rather, I don't know. It's just frustrating. To me, it seems like we're going in it backwards or,
Mr. Bagby?
Just two things I'd ask y'all to do when you go into your negotiations. Number one, I want to know who the project managers are, who the construction managers are. I want to see, is anybody certified PMP? What's their background? Not the folks up here. Sal's a great guy. All those PEs, not a one of those PEs is going to be down there when they're starting to turn dirt. They'll be there for the shovel turning dirt, when we break ground, but I want somebody that's there every day. The second thing is I need to understand how the staff intends to deconflict this contract with our continuing services contracts with the other firms that we've said, hey, when we have something, we're going to come to you, and because I'm not sure how you deconflict that and how you don't make Matrix the automatic default, because that's not the way the system's designed. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Braden? And then I got comments, and we'll go ahead and take it to a vote.
all right, thanks, Mayor. I just got a quick question. Do we have a staff member that works for the city of Destin, has a family member or a spouse that actually works for Matrix?
Not that I'm aware.
Yeah, I did collect conflict of interest statements from all of the staff that have any ability to work or hire or influence in any way any purchasing. And I can confirm that as of February 28th, no, we had no staff members that have any relationship whatsoever to Matrix.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
The only comments I'm going to make, and it's in deference to kind of cover for our staff and our city attorney now. I think when Mr. Destin made his recommendation, it was based off his experience with the school board. And as a result, that's the direction that the staff took with conversations with Mr. Destin, and they brought the only respondents to that request for bid, and they brought it back to us exactly like what we asked for them to do. Now, if what we got is not what we want, well, that's, y'all have the capability to make that decision here in just a second when I hit the button. But if not, then the motion will pass, and we'll press on and make the adjustments of the concerns of some of the council members, because even if you vote to accept this today, it's a constantly moving goalpost. We could set requirements and change things and deconflict where we need to deconflict at the appropriate time. So with that being said, we're at the council process. Did you submit a bid, Mike? I'm just messing with you. No, I don't really need that. I know who you are. It's unusual at this point because you're not a party to this. I understand, Mike, but you can weigh in at public comment.
construction manager, director now.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to go outside our normal deal. I'm fixing to take a vote on a motion and a second that's been made. Now, if it suits the council to allow this, I'm not going to put that on me. Are you guys good with Mike coming up, make a statement? Have a statement, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Mike Buckingham, 510. Just thought we'd let you guys know to maybe ease your not having to rush. I have been asked if I would be interested in being the project manager on the crosstown that's coming up. And I told them I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk about it because I think it might be good. Please also keep in mind you have engineers in this community that would love the opportunity. They have plenty of staff that would come out and see anything you want for a fee of much smaller and as you need it. So as far as if you're trying to hurry up because of the crosstown, I've been asked to see if I would be interested in doing it. As you all know, I'm working on one of your projects now. Thank you.
Okay. We got a motion, we have a second, let's go to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Webb,
All right, next item is our medical and ancillary benefit renewals for city employees. Our current United Healthcare plan for the city expires on September 1st. Every year, staff and our contracted medical plan broker, who is Accentria, works through the process of competitive pricing to seek out the options for our organization. As you know, our strategic plan's top and critical priority for 2022 is to offer livable wages and benefits to attract and maintain high caliber and qualified staff. Throughout this process, staff at Accentria has kept that strategic objective in mind as we've worked to find the best options for our employees and family benefits while working within the budgetary constraints as we move into next fiscal year. Our initial renewal information with UHC came back with a 34% increase. Staff has been working hard to balance our budget next year, and that initial proposal has been a significant cost increase for the employees as well as the city. Since that initial rate offering by UHC, Accentria has worked with a number of providers, including Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Blue Cross Blue Shield was able to offer a similar PPO plan with about a 23% increase with a 1 month premium reduction, which actually would further that cost or reduce that cost by about 8%. After careful consideration, staff is recommending that Blue Cross Blue Shield plan 03769. It is very similar to the current plan that we have with UHC for this year. One additional note, we did send out an email today, our current UHC's plan renewal information, which was their final 28% rate offering. So that information is in your council inbox. It's not in the packet, but that information there is if you would like to review it. Also, there was no additional increases on the insurance offerings such as dental, vision, short-term disability, life, and hospital indemnity. That information is also in the packet. Do want to emphasize again how much effort staff has put into this with Accentria to keep our benefits in line with council's top and critical priority. Accentria's very own David Barton and Mike Caraway are here tonight, as well as our interim HR manager, Karen Jankowski, is also online tonight if council has any questions at this time. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Abear.
Mayor, I'm going to make the recommended motion that's in the packet to move to authorize the city manager to renew existing ancillary benefits with Guardian and to accept Florida Blues proposal of PPO Plan 03769 with its companion health savings account plan to be effective September 1st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is we're going to get a one-time reduction from Blue Cross, which is going to reduce our premium substantially the first year. which is better than poking the eye with a stick. But then the next year, it'll go up to close to what it would be anyway. And the other question I have, and I've talked to staff about it, the networks, are they the same? If they're not, then it gets quite controversial to switch and somebody's doctor is not in the system anymore. And have we polled the staff at all to see if they want to go forward with this?
Who would like to answer that question?
Yeah, I'll do my best to answer some of that. As it relates to staff, we have been talking with senior leaders and been working with some senior leaders on that. Frankly, we have not had the time this year to go through and poll all the employees on this. This has been a very quick turnaround. That's something that we want to actually get ahead of next year. But we have been working with our senior leaders through this process. As it relates to the benefits in the network, I would ask that either Mike or David assist us on that and provide that information.
Come on up, Dave. You guys probably stand up here for a little bit too, because I think there's going to be more than just Mr. Destin with some questions. So go ahead.
I figured there might be some. In answer to your question, Mr. Destin, the 8% is for 1 year, but as you know, I've been doing this for 12 years for the city of Destin, and we change companies as rapidly as we need to for the benefit of the city and the employees, and certainly justifiable this year. It was a bad year from a claim standpoint. The city had very difficult claims. We had one company come in 25%, Aetna came in 25% higher than United Healthcare's original 34%. And the League of Cities, which is normally pretty easy to get quotes from the League of Cities, they declined to quote completely. So it is a difficult year. We admit that, but hopefully, you know, medical claims come in. They don't come in, waves. They typically, you have a bad year, and you could have a good year, and we're just hoping that next year is a better year, and we can present to the other carriers and get a little more competition.
And the answer to the networks is?
Networks are phenomenal. Blue Cross networks are every bit as good as United Healthcare networks here locally, and nationally they reciprocate their PPO networks throughout the country.
I think our HR manager may want to weigh in on this issue too. Karen, are you available?
Yes, I'm available. Thank you so much. I did want to say that we do, if we could restate that motion, it should be September 1st, 2022. I was thinking fiscal year, I think, when I did the agenda item, so I apologize. If we could restate that motion.
I'll make that motion to correct it to September 1st of 2022.
Okay with the second? Okay. All right, Bobby.
So I am very new to all this. So as far as the plans go, from a small business to a
Mike,
large
please.
corporation, when you get to the big numbers, as people come in and out, does that affect the package or the price at all as our employees coming in and out of the city?
So, no, they wouldn't. So once we lock in the rates that we've secured for 9/1 of '22, those will be continuous through the entire plan year, regardless of employees coming in and out of the plan or dependent changes. And I do want to make a note going back to, and by the way, good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor, Mike Caraway. I have, with regards to changing from United Healthcare over back to Florida Blue, the important word there is back because we just did this last year. And unfortunately, in our market, we only have 2 viable carriers to choose from in a fully insured world, which is where we are, which means we pay a locked-in premium no matter how well we do or how poorly we do. There's no opportunity for us to win or to, have a ceiling on our premiums. So we're at the mercy of the carriers. And so United Healthcare comes in with this fantastic package last year, right? We improved our benefits, lowered our rates from where Florida Blue was, and then our first renewal, we have to stare at a 34% rate increase. Just not acceptable. So we're going to be exploring some options this coming year that's going to give us, we're going to be a lot more flexible and nimble about what we can and can't do and not be at the mercy of the Florida Blues and the United Healthcares. But we are locked and loaded for this coming plan year. And you're right, Mr. Destin, that premium holiday is a month premium, but that premium's locked in, right? So even though we get that month off, that water line is already set. So our job as your broker consultant is to make sure that we keep that water line. If we have an opportunity to move it down, we want to move it down. But when we're fully insured, we just don't have that. Hope that helps.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. Is the number of employees currently is 13, and then it says you're projecting 38, whoever put this report together? Is that what we're planning on having signed up for it?
That's your current enrollment on the plan. Correct. And then so you have about 60 folks on the traditional PPO, and then the remaining balance at 38 is on the high deductible HSA plan.
Do we have the ability to look to have these companies that have I'm a member of MediShare. I've been self-employed for almost coming on 5 years now.
Sure.
Haven't seen these type of plans in a long time.
Right.
I mean, as a family of 5, I'm paying less than an employee-only price on here. Do we have the options for companies like that? And my kid, I mean, same, child care doctor that we had with Florida. I mean, I've never noticed a difference,
Right.
except the money I pay. But
So yeah, MediShare is more of an individual product for small business owners or families that are trying to have affordable coverage. There are some limitations to that versus the traditional plans that we're looking at here, like the Lifetime Max, but our plans are unlimited, where you may have a cap on how much they'll pay out on your particular plan. One of the options that we did look at was an association plan, Florida League of Cities. They declined to quote us. So, yeah, we turned over every stone that we could that fit the model and the profile for the city of Destin, and Florida Blue is certainly but those plans are out there, but they're really not on a group chassis platform.
And then these rates that are listed, is this our cost for these plans that are in this
There
packet?
should be the total cost for like the traditional PPO for single coverage is $823. That would be the total monthly cost for an employee on that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I understand because when you took us over, when Simple HR, we moved from Landrum to Simple HR, and we changed carriers, the biggest question, but I think we should be okay because we're just going back to the same people that we had a year ago, so.
And the employees were happy with Blue Cross.
Yeah.
When we changed, but I mean, the rates we're moving to are about what Blue Cross came back with us after 4 or 5 years with them.
Yeah.
But we've been with United Healthcare, we've been with Aetna, we've been with some of them multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think there was one stretch in my tenure with you guys that I moved companies 5 years in a row. And that's certainly no fun for the employees. You do worry about, is my medication going to be covered? Did we have the same formulary list with these carriers as we did the last one? And, are my doctors going to be on the plan? And we don't have an issue like that moving from a United Healthcare to a Florida Blue. Now, a little more so moving from United to Aetna, and certainly more so moving from some of the other plans we do, especially for larger entities, are self-insured plans. And when we get self-insured plans, they rent networks, and the networks they rent are not quite as comprehensive as the ones you guys have.
The point that I want to make is on the compensation angle, that we're going to have a conversation on the 11th on, because we're paying this, and it's going to cost, for the most part, going to cost our staff less, okay? For a Tier 2 drug, 35, current plan to 30. There are some places where it goes down 50 to 30 or whatever, so that has to be factored in. When we start doing the global compensation thing, they're getting better, the deductible, the out-of-pocket max, $3,000 for an individual, $6,000 for a family, as opposed to $4,000 currently and $8,000 currently. So, that because the staff and I have been going back and forth on the amount of increase based on the amount of increase they already got April 1st. And so you'll see this chart one more time, probably on the 11th, and then when the budget comes to us, because the compensation includes these benefits. And actually, it's a critical, I've got people that all they do is work for the benefits. You know, I could probably pay them $12 an hour, but they need their medical and they need their prescription drugs. So I just want to make sure the staff understands that this is a huge component on the compensation.
Ms. Aber.
Well, thanks for saying that, Mr. Bagby, because that's pretty much what I was going to say, is, you know, when you hire employees, a lot of times it isn't about that hourly, it's about what kind of benefits, my medical, dental, and my prescriptions, what it's going to cost. So looking at this, I see a lot of the preventive care is all zero in network, and that's another thing that I'm very glad to see. Last question, you said they are going to be able to switch and not see any difference in their primary care. They're not going to have any changes to who's in network and out of network?
There may be some one-off situations where that could happen. There's, you know, are they exactly the same doctors? No, they're not exactly the same doctors. But I'm just saying, by and large, Florida Blue has an extremely good network here. I would say it's probably slightly better than United Healthcare. Now, Florida Blue does have two networks. They have one really bad one called Blue Select, and they have Blue Choice, which is a very comprehensive one. And again, with Blue Choice, you can go nationwide using Blue Cross providers.
Yeah, and one thing to note too, on Wednesday, we're going to do an all-hands meeting for the employees to go through the benefit package. And those are things that will definitely, you know, drive home about, you know, verifying their network. There's no change, also the plan difference, and most importantly is the specialty medications, because that's always a tricky, you know, item when you make a transition over to one. So we're going to try to get out in front of this as much as we can to prepare the employees for 9/1.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Seeing we have a motion and a second, let's go ahead and take this to a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved.
All right. Next item for tonight is we have an update on the Crosstown Connector project. Our Community Development Director, Mr. Louis Nguzzi, is here tonight to discuss this item, as well as our consultants, which is Atkins Engineering. Mr. Nguzzi?
Thank you, Webb. Good evening, Mayor and council members. If you recall, the last meeting you directed that the Atkins consultants come back and provide you a cost estimate to redesign and underground the retention areas that are associated with the Crosstown Connector in order to maximize the recreation and park areas at this facility. I have this evening the consultants present. If I would ask them, since you've got their presentation, if I would ask them to provide you an abbreviated version of their presentation and afford you the time to have a discussion. JB?
Members of council, Mr. Mayor, thanks for having us back to go over some of these details for you. I believe in the meeting agenda you have the full details of the two different options for scope and fee to put the stormwater retention as an underground option. And the difference between those two options is whether it's the larger Pond 2 area just south of the connector roadway, or also including Pond 1 on the corner of Benning and Destin Connector. So those are the two differences. Included in the scope items are drainage design updates, drainage calculation updates, report updates, an additional permit pre-app meeting, and then updates to the permit documents and applications, roadway plan updates, landscape plan updates, and quantities and cost estimate updates. So we can, if you would like, take a moment to go over any questions, but then also we have a drainage engineer, Miranda Glass, with us, and then we also have our drainage engineer of record, Nikki Rowe, on Teams as well to answer any questions. And they have prepared a presentation to go over the different underground retention options and some of the costs that you would expect with those.
Well, where I'd like to start is, you go ahead and we all got the briefing documents, so we've seen the presentations. The various types of underground deals, not as important as the cost comparisons, but just the first 2 or 3 slides I think are real important. First, I'll take a real look at.
Okay.
And then we can skip over the 5 different types of that underground deal, and we could skip right over to looking at the cost comparisons. And then one thing that wasn't real clear to me was the difference in the size of the ponds. The traditional pond was going to be steep and require fencing and stuff like that. So when we get to that portion, I'd like to ask for a differential, how much of more recreational area will these underground drainage systems provide versus a traditional?
Okay, yeah, so we can get into those details. Quick answer, it will provide full underground treatment. So these systems do provide full treatment and attenuation, so it would be flat land. Yes.
That answered my question.
Okay.
We won't even have to go down that route then. So go ahead and have your crew start,
Okay.
and then I'll recognize council members as they have questions.
All right. Do you want to go through these question slides? Okay. So at what level of design would this take us? We would go back and basically be at 60% today, and we would rework to 90% plans, 100% and final plans. I will, let's see, I'll have Nikki, if you're on the line, handle the next drainage-related questions.
Sure. The next drainage-related question was to explain the difference in retention from 4-lane to 2-lane and why the ponds are as large as they are. So the previous design plans for 4 lanes, the ponds were designed to have a 3-to-1 side slope, which is a lot steeper than what I'm designing with a 4-to-1. And the 3-to-1 side slopes would require a fence to be around the ponds. And so no public access would be allowed since those slopes are very steep. The current pond volumes in the design are dictated by the Northwest Florida Water Management District's criteria for water quality and volume for a closed basin retention pond, while maintaining required freeboard, which is a foot from the inner berm. There is not really any excess volume available in Pond 1 as it is. We're barely meeting the freeboard requirements for that pond. Pond 2 has a small amount of excess volume for the freeboard elevation that could be utilized in the future if there were additional improvement projects or additional impervious area as part of the park features in the future that could provide treatment and attenuation for that as well. But it's not really over-designed. The next question was about percolation rates. The percolation rates that were used in the modeling are from our geotechnical engineers' borings, as well as adding a criteria of 1.5 factor of safety to that, which is pretty standard practice. The fourth question was explaining the reason for the drainage basin being larger than the project. The reason that the drainage basins are a little bit larger than the proposed project area is because there is currently some off-site area that does drain to the site, and so that has to be managed. Since we're adding curb and gutter to the project, originally that area would kind of drain off into the green space, but since we're adding curb and gutter, we're blocking that off, and so I have designed it to pick up runoff in the storm sewer system or to be diverted to green space areas via a flume.
Is your question related to that? Nope. Okay, go on.
The next question was about surface retention being utilized at Beach and Benning Drive intersections to reduce the ponds or redistribute some of the retention area. There are two small triangular parcel remainders. They're approximately 1/4 of an acre each on either side of the beach intersection that could potentially be used to provide attenuation and treatment. But we would need additional geotechnical borings and analysis in order to be able to provide calculations and permitting for those areas. And it wouldn't eliminate the need for Pond 2, but it may shrink the area. However, then we're stuck with 3 ponds instead of just 1 pond, and those 1/4 acre areas could potentially be used for park space or another use. And then as far as the Benning intersection, there's not really much area for treatment in that area. There's just like the small green spaces in between the sidewalk and the road. So it wouldn't really reduce the size of Pond 1 very much.
I think there's one more. So the difference in schedule between the two options, when we spoke at the last council meeting, I committed to a 2-month time frame for this turnaround. So despite one effort being larger, we thought it was important to maintain that obligation to you. So it'll be just a more workload within the office, more staff, but we want to keep that time frame.
Well, thanks for answering that, because I was looking at the cost, but I was also trying to figure out, okay, if we're looking at a time frame and we're still within a 2-month window, so the cost, whether we do them both or one, it's still going to be done within that 2 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to ask you guys, you were aware that the area, other than that in the right-of-way, had been designated as a park on May of 2021, right?
The area outside of the roadway, curb and gutter, is that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure of a specific date, but I know that was the intent.
And in your opinion, the 4-to-1, which is, I think it's still, close to 11 feet deep, but you did change the slope. In your opinion, a pond with a 4-to-1 slope is appropriate for a public park and could be used as a public park?
I know there have been areas that we've modeled that pond after is regularly used as park, but I will let Nikki comment on that further as far as she's aware.
I'm not sure that's an answer, but anyway.
Sorry, just to dive further into that, the Northwest Florida Water Management District criteria allows for 4-to-1 side slopes for ponds without being fenced.
Okay, and is that within a park, is my question. Do you think it's appropriate, and you would tell us that it's appropriate to have that in a public park?
Yes, I would say so. There's parks around here, and I've been to events before around here that have retention ponds with 4-to-1 side slopes that have events in it. People walking up and down those ponds, and they're about as deep as what I have designed here. Scott, I don't know if you know of anything that would negate that.
No, I mean, there's a lot of different uses in parks, but as long as there's, consideration of the, the access using the 4-to-1 slopes, it's certainly a reasonable use.
Okay, and my only other observation and the question to you is, it appears that that drainage pond takes up about 60 or 70% of the area designated as a park.
Yes.
So we can still stretch our imagination and say that's a park, in your opinion?
Yes. Said
And
that's fair.
and if people were traversing up and down the slopes, that would still maintain its integrity as a drainage pond?
Yes.
Would it collect water after a strong rain event at 4 to 1? Would it, is that enough space to where it doesn't actually collect the water?
I'll let Nikki expand, but yes, the design is that it would retain the designed stormwater event, and then, it's
Percolate.
designed to be a dry pond, and it'll percolate out and recover.
Right, right. It will hold water, but it's designed to percolate into the ground rate, and within days after the storm event, it should return to being dry.
But it is called a pond. Let me get over to
Yes.
the drainage basin. When I looked at the plans, it's true we have the roundabouts that are an integral part of this crosstown connector that are part of the basin, but then we go over into both Beach, Legion, and Azalea on the other side and incorporate quite a large area of those areas into the drainage basin. And the reason behind that is that what the city gave you, or did you come up with the need to include those areas in the drainage basin?
So those areas were included within the drainage basin based off of topographic survey and doing research on the area based on what runoff directions look like in the area. On Benning, for example, even though we're not touching a portion of Benning, that area is currently draining to where Pond C is, and there is an existing concrete ditch that carried runoff to that area, and so that has to be captured within the basin area because it's running to the site.
Do you have any idea what percentage of square foot we've added to the drainage basin by including all of these roadways?
Maybe half an acre.
Well, we could come up with that calculation to be precise, couldn't we?
Yes, sir. I could get that number for you.
Okay, and the only other observation I would make on the drainage basin is I drove Airport Road, Mountain Drive, Azalea Drive, and Beach Drive today, and I can't find a single pond like this on any of those roadways. And so I tried to determine how in the world we were handling the stormwater on those roadways without a pond such as this. On Mountain Drive, it appears we've put drainage on each side, and Mountain Drive is quite large with a 10-foot sidewalk and some very extensive landscape. It appears that we are draining from swales on each side into a percolation system that in fact goes to pipes under the road. Is that possible? And I know you don't know what happened in Mountain Drive, but where does the drainage go on Mountain Drive?
It goes to storm scepter chambers underneath the roadway. There are a number of vaults throughout the length of Mountain Drive.
And so that design was not applicable to this 1,200 feet of crosstown connector?
I'm assuming it's similar to Legion Drive where there's exfiltration trenches that the stormwater currently drains to and depressional areas in between the houses. So the exfiltration trenches provide water quality treatment. And then I believe on Legion Drive, there's ribbon curb which is existing, so runoff can escape the road and percolate into any green spaces in front of property owners' houses. With the typical section for the Destin Crosstown Connector, we're adding curb and gutter, which blocks runoff from being able to go into green spaces. As well, the ponds are based on current Northwest Florida water quality and attenuation criteria. I'm not sure when those roads were designed or permitted, but our design is based on current criteria.
So you're telling me we could not have done it that way on the crosstown? We could not have put the under the road chambers, et cetera?
We could have exfiltration trench to provide treatment. However, they don't provide stormwater attenuation, which is just basically holding the runoff volume so that it doesn't flood properties or the road.
Okay, well, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but of course, the object is that I have in mind and that we should be working toward because of the action taken to council to designate the rest of the campground as a park is to minimize or eliminate the drainage retention ponds. So how do we get there? I know that you have proposed the underground filtration at I think you're asking for 70,000, or is it for the just for one is 40,000 for the redesign? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then if we did all of those ponds, which may not need to do, it would be more in the neighborhood of 70, and that's for design.
That's correct.
And then we're looking at, as I looked at the alternative styles of underground filtration pipes, anywhere from a low of 700,000 or 800,000 to a high of 2 or 3 million.
Correct, yes.
And so I just wondered why we couldn't have started from the beginning of this process and designed something that was adhered to the policy set by the council. But we're not there, and I'm not here to crucify or give anybody a hard time. I am interested in hearing how we can get from there to where we need to be. So, you know, if you guys want to go ahead and give the rest of the presentation, I understand and have looked at the alternative underground drainage. I think we could go ahead and modify the drainage basin. I don't think it needs to include all of the acreage and the square footage y'all have put in there. We can go under the road with some of it. There are a number of solutions where we could get back to where the rest of that property can be the park that it was designated as a year ago. And so now we need to figure out how to get there. And later on in the presentation, I'll call on Mr. Buckingham, who has been working with an engineering company that I have used in the past, who designed underground filtration for parking lots at my restaurants, and we'll look at some of those options.
Mr. Bagby.
It will be nice. I guess I share the same concern, or what I think is a similar concern as Mr. Destin. And I wasn't here May of 2021. I didn't come back on until August. But my understanding was this was going to be a park. It was going to be a park, not a pond. It was going to be a park. And if we had approached, you know, we had this conversation last time, it's an engineering problem. You know, if we had approached this engineering problem as, how do we get a park here? Okay, a park, not a pond. How do we get a park here? What do we need to do? Well, we got to do something with water. There are 20 different solutions that I could think of, and I'm not a PE, but where we could have a park. But for some reason, we went down a road, and I'm not quite sure why, we decided to do ponds, which are not a park. And I know, you know, Seaside had their amphitheater behind the post office before they moved the post office, and they started filling that in because every time it rained, you know, they had a lake there. And then Alice has the little amphitheater thing, but it's designed with a very broad, flat surface, and then the sides up where people can sit and they can see the movies at night. It actually had a purpose. This didn't have a purpose other than to be a pond. And so I'm just trying to reconcile why we spend all this time and all this energy and all this money creating ponds when what the council and the city asked for was a park. We want a park there where kids can play, dogs can run, people can throw frisbee. Not, standing on a 3-to-1 slope, but a park. Having said that, what is the solution? And it seems like that's a very expensive, just from a planning perspective, that seems like a very costly solution, but I don't know y'all's rates and everything. I'm sure you got to get 6 PEs to review everything that you and Nikki and everybody else does, but, okay.
So I think there's a lot of history on this project that, as you're saying, you weren't here on March the 12th. I was not here at the start of this project. We've gone through a few project managers, and there's been a lot of history that even I'm not aware of. As far as I'm aware, we've designated that right-of-way as park to make sure that that road stays a 2-lane road. That was one of the fears. We have done work to prepare concepts for parks on the north property. As my understanding coming into this project, that's where the park was supposed to be. Pond 2 has been a pond for the length of this project. But I'd also like to say, we are the consultants for the city. We're happy to do what is in the best interest for the city and whatever you direct us to do to get there. We do not propose underground retention from the get-go, as that is, as you see, a much costlier solution, and that is not best practice unless required by some other means. So with that being said, we are happy to work with the council, with the city, to get the best project. If that's a storm pond, if that's underground retention, we're happy to work with you to get to that final product.
Mr. Braid.
Thank you, Mayor. Mountain Drive, is that the curb and gutter system you're talking about?
Mountain Drive?
Yes.
I don't have experience with that. Nikki, I don't know if she has experience.
Our city guy.
Joe's waving his hand, yes.
No worries. Yes, it is that curb and gutter system. There are curb and gutter inlets on the south side of the roadway, and there is a collection swale with yard inlets on the north side of the roadway.
Okay, thank you. In my personal opinion, I think it's a horrible design. I hate that. I hate the look of it. I don't know why we're using the road as a ditch, I guess you could say, to haul all the water, and I'd rather just run off the road and so why are we using that system to start with?
The retention pond system?
Curb and gutter.
Curb and gutter, because that is the typical section that City Council has asked us to go forward with.
Now, who council, I guess that was somewhere in the plans that we've approved along?
Yep.
Yes.
30% and 60.
Okay, that I did not see. So again, why was that proposed to the council to start with? Is that something the state requires us now, or?
It's following the urban typical section. It, as you know, was the 4 lanes. We've reduced it to 2 lanes with a bike lane, curb and gutter, and sidewalk. And that's the driving factor. If you want that multi-use sidewalk adjacent to the roadway, it would have to be curb and gutter.
That's correct.
Really, because we got 8-foot sidewalks, quite a few areas in this town, and I think Mountain Drive's the only curb and gutter we got, so I'm still real confused as why this is curb and gutter unless it's just more money or. Go ahead, buddy.
Thank you, sir. One of the reasons that we've used curb and gutter is it significantly reduces the clear zone requirements or the recovery zone when a vehicle leaves the roadway, which was more of a safety feature that would help protect the pedestrians and then the patrons of the adjacent park.
Did we do, I thought we did Mountain Drive, and then we did Main Street and Airport Road construction? Or did we do Airport Road, Main Street, and then Mountain Drive?
Wow, great question. I believe it was Main Street, Airport Road, and then Mountain Drive somewhere around the 2009, 2010 timeframe.
Okay. I just think it looks horrible myself, and I don't know why we're going that route. So I guess the next question would be if the ponds that y'all designed to start with, I guess they are, because the question was being asked earlier, could this new design be used as a park and people play in it, whatnot, with the slope? And the answer was yes. So it was the old ponds that we were presented a couple months ago, I guess they would be adequate as well with the deeper ponds and the slopes and all that to be a pond or a park as well.
Yes, the new proposed options, it would be flat land. All the stormwater would be in chambers or pipes underground. The original design, that pond is variable depth, so there are areas that are much shallower at the east side. That is the larger, deeper portion. But as Nikki was saying, 4-to-1 slope, so still traversable and accessible.
So if we could have used the original pond design as parks, then why are we spending all the money to put the underground filtration in?
Good question.
Because there's parks as well.
Because y'all just told them to do that. I'm going to bring that up at the very end, Rodney, what you just asked. Because that's one thing nobody's talking about quite yet, but I'm sure they will. I think Mr. Smith has some comments, but that's on my little list. I went and watched that workshop, start to finish, hour and 4 minutes worth, right before I came. I got some notes on that, so that's a good question.
Got an answer?
As Mr. Mayor said, that's what we've been directed by council to do, so we're coming back to present those options to you.
So my question is, the original ponds, they were adequate for parks with the slope and all that. They were adequate to be a park.
Correct, yes.
And if we put this filtration system in, can trees or anything be planted on top of it?
Typically, no. There is one of the options which is excessively expensive that would allow for trees, but I don't think that's a viable option.
Okay, and I guess my next comment would be is I don't know why we would want to put, I guess, a park. My thought would be that we would put some type of playground equipment or something in it that is going to be underwater when it rains. I don't know why we would do something like that, but
Our intent in our presentation, probably 2 years ago at this point, we did have renderings of park playground on that north acre parcel. If the south pond, the large pond, wants to be used as additional recreation space and be zoned as a park, that's an option, but I agree. I don't know that you would want to put playground equipment in the depression.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that as well. When we're saying the ponds, the above ground ponds, they are traversable and usable as park space, mainly just for, pedestrians walking around or playing soccer or walking their dog, that sort of thing. But not for swing sets, the below ground systems can support swing sets and other park features like that, but no trees.
Okay, thank you. I guess it would be nice if the council had more information when we ask something. You know, we want this a park. When I asked for, you know, fill in the swell and put flat ground there, that's what I was asking for, you know, fill it up, flat ground, all the drainage up underneath it. I mean, it'd been nice if, you know, the council would have been told, well, you know, we can go back and build you a park, but it's still going to be a pond, just not quite as deep, and still going to hold water, and, you know, it's really not what you're thinking as far as a flat ground park. And do we have any idea of the what the average perk test results were?
Nikki?
Yes.
Do we have an idea of what the perk rate was, average?
Yeah, so average for Pond 1 is 30.75 feet per day vertical, and then Pond 2 was 18.85 feet per day based on the borings.
Seems like that was perking quite a bit of water. Am I wrong?
Yes, the soils here are really good. The percolation rates are good here.
Okay, so I guess it just seems like those types of results we wouldn't need. Mr. Destin, you were saying it was 6 feet deep, 7 feet deep. A swell that deep, that just seems like an awful lot of water that's perking 37.5 feet. Yeah. So, okay, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I have a few questions. First, I just want to throw out there that there's, in our agenda packet, there's some stuff provided. I got involved with some commenting of some public Facebook stuff about some comments about definitions of ponds and stuff, so that's in there if anybody wants to go peruse those. We had some things provided to us today and recently. I just wanted to, you might not have the answers, but maybe our staff does, but I first wanted, if I could just check, because I've heard a lot about a 4-lane road and that we've never had a project designed to be 4 lanes. But then I see this thing, it talks about on this reevaluation, it says project now is to be a 2-lane facility instead of a 4-lane facility. So does that mean that it was a 4-lane road project? Like officially, is there a design that we have?
There were 100% plans. I don't know the date on those. Yes, about 10, 12 years ago, that was designed to be a 4-lane road. And then the redesign plan, so that's the phase we're in currently, and that went down to the typical section we're ultimately at today with the 2 lanes. I said a bike lane earlier, that's incorrect. It's, I think, a foot wide shoulder and then a multi-use sidewalk.
And then a lot of these milestones and different things, a lot of them, all throughout the 2 years I looked at, talks about drainage analysis underway. Is that a very broad statement, or are we talking about this exact topic we're talking about right now? Like, I mean, it seems like y'all, if it's about this topic, it seems like it's been underway and analyzed for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a broad statement. The drainage process, you know, they start with the general analysis of the basin, seeing where the water's coming from, doing the calculations, the perk rates, you know, seeing what the design constraints are.
Gotcha.
And then at a certain point in the design phase, they react to the roadway design. So now they know where they can place their ponds and start doing the geometric
Sure.
design of that,
Got
the inlet locations,
Okay.
piping sizes, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
And then I also saw the minutes from 2021, and there's been a couple of comments. And first, I'll throw out there that when I reread it now, and it says that the motion was to not, the part of that's not part of the right-of-way, to be a green belt / park. And council will provide the details, the money becomes available. And one thing I've learned in almost 2 years is that if we're not being very specific and detailed in our motions and our directions, if it's not on there, there's a gray area possibly, right? And staff is going to do, I guess, what the motion says. So the first thing is the definition of a green belt is an area of open land around a city on which a building is restricted. I mean, so the motion was a green belt / park. Didn't say anything about playgrounds or anything like that. And I love parks. I got 3 kids, so I mean, I get it. I just also want to be fair to staff or you or whoever. It said greenbelt / park, and we didn't tell y'all to put a jungle gym in there, or make it level to be baseball worthy. So, I feel like it's reasonable. I recently, and people might disagree with the exact terminology of it, and that's fine, but, I travel almost every weekend this summer, and we had 20 kids playing wiffle ball in a retention pond, literally behind the hotel. And I got pictures of it, and I sent it to some people as well. Okay, so, I came out here and walked this retention pond that I was told is going to be a similar size. It's the closest one that we have, I guess. It might be a little bit bigger or deeper. While standing there, I think at least 2 people casually walked across it and went over to Morgan's Park. So, the option and the ability to use it is there. And I will ask, though, is that if it stays a pond, we can put, what's the word I'm trying to think? We can maintain it, right? We can put sod in it as much as we want and have it. We could put St. Augustine sod and cut the heck out of it and keep it nice and trimmed or whatever if we wanted to, right? And
correct.
our maintenance crew could start cutting it and keeping it trimmed so there's no stickers and crap in it, I guess, right? We could do that.
That'll be the first in the city.
I don't know. I mean, have we ever
if
told them to maintain another pond?
I'm saying if we grow grass in the city of Destin, it'll be the first one.
Yeah, well, if we make it a priority to do it in this particular one, then maybe they'll do it. So, I guess ultimately, I mean, I'm not a fan of the redesign. It's not about I don't want a park. It's not why I don't want a redesign. Okay, I would, my idea, just like you mentioned a while ago, is the north side. How y'all told us that's where we're going to have benches. And that's where we're going to have, places to play. That's not in this design because that's not where our money's at, but that you're leaving it open for us to do those things. So, that's my thought. I mean, if council wanted a level thing, some of the I don't know if some council members were on here last time 15 years ago or whenever the first time. I mean, it is never designed that way, I guess. If it was, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Correct.
And so I just, green space is important, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to sit here redesign, and I also don't want to sit here, once you redesign it, then have the discussion about $600,000 to $3 million. So it's just, I just want to continue. I want to have it built. I think it's going to benefit everybody, and we'll all be okay. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. I watched the 5/10/21 workshop meeting start to finish about 30 minutes before I got here. And one of the things that was spoken about and acted on is that with this new 2-lane road, that the green space would be zoned recreational. So that would permanently make sure that we didn't get a 4-lane, That was one of the attempts by the council to get the message clear that there will be no 4-lane built in the crosstown connector section that we're speaking of, because it's going to, everything on both sides would be zoned recreational, and that would end that. And that was also the first time the linear park idea came up. And along with the linear park idea came Mr. Desson spoke about slowing the traffic and making the lanes certain sizes and to 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Talked about the roundabouts and stuff like that. So, and by the bike, what I'm going to call a multimodal path, which was also spoke and agreed on, and everybody wanted to go that route between the multimodal path, the green area, and the lanes, the width of the lanes, that we were going to get, people would just slow down just because of the ambiance of the area, but more importantly, the design of the road itself. And in that presentation, which you did, you talked about the recreational opportunities that were in that at the time, I think was the 30 or 60% design when we were doing our workshop. Or maybe it was the 30%, we hadn't got to 60. But then you showed in that plan the fitness loop on the north side, where you could take that bike path off, not only just on the road, the connector road itself, the wide one, but then you could have a fitness loop up, up past the rest of the property along the fence line. You also showed an example of an art walk that could be used, and also a gathering space. I think up in the northwest corner was an area where you could actually put a roofed area for a picnic area. But when I watched that thing, there was no direction to make it flat ground. There was no real discussion about underground drainage. It was all revolved around the fact that we were going to have Pond 1 and Pond 2 and the green area on the north side of the 2-lane connector could be used for recreational activities, of which you gave an example. So I want to go to their defense a little bit about talking about wasting money and changing things, stuff like that. That's on us, because we keep throwing these guys curveballs on a pretty regular basis. So, and they're doing their very best to answer those. They've done all their studies. They've come back with 6 or 7 different underground drainage systems that would allow us to create that flat space, to make it a park as best as you could describe. But also, I can't remember which page it's on, but then it shows that the normal percolation ponds, even the adjusted one to the 4-to-1 slope instead of the 3-to-1 to give us more flat area for recreational purposes, that the difference in cost is between, I think Pond 2 was $200,000, Pond 1 was $325,000, to doing those other 7 options was anywhere from $875,000 to $1.6 million. So we just set our ad valorem at 1.65, which is the same it's been for 7 years. And so if we're gonna take this step to go from a crosstown connector with some green space, which is what the intent was to start with, and even if we just keep a linear park idea with the possibilities that were in the 60% plan, we're talking a difference between just sub $500,000 to build a road with drainage, the original drainage areas slightly modified, with green space, with possible picnic areas or trail walks or exercise walks or even exercise equipment, to 1.6. Kevin's probably right. It's probably more like $3 million to create a park. Now, we got $30 million worth of Bayside parks now. We're trying to get one done on the harbor. So I'm not against parks like Kevin, but if we're going to bite it off $3 million to make this road also a park, then we probably, in our budget workshop here on the 11th, we might have to talk about maybe changing our ad valorem rate to being from the 4th lowest in the state to maybe the 5th lowest in the state. Mr. Desson, go ahead. I can see
Mayor,
you
I'm
jumping.
glad you brought up the price. Mr. Buckingham and I have been working with an engineer And if we could let him make his presentation, I think we will see that the cost could be far less than those estimates. If I think now would be the appropriate time if we can let him give us the information that he's been able to gather.
I'll let our guy, that'll let poor Atkins off the hot seat for a few minutes anyways. Go ahead and take a seat. Mike, if you'd like to come up and throw us some numbers while we're talking about it, I'm all ears. And probably, I don't know about handing this out at the thing, because it wasn't in the brief and document. Are we okay? Can he just go ahead and put it on the public record verbally and then enter it?
Yeah,
written?
yeah, it can be entered in the public record after
Okay.
the fact.
Mike, that's what we're going to do is we'll,
But as long as Ray has it, and you gave one to Ray,
yeah.
so we're good.
So what we're going to do for those that are watching and listening is Mr. Buckingham's handing us materials that we didn't get a chance to see prior to the meeting. It wasn't advertised, but it will be available for the public to look at. Ray, how long before we can get this on the website? Couple days?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, a couple days. So for the public, take a look at some of the things that you're going to hear as Mr. Buckingham explains. Give us a couple days to get it on the website. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Buckingham, 510 Calhoun, thank you. There's going to be some multiple concerns that I have that I'm going to try to bring out to you all. It might take me a few minutes. I hope I have a couple minutes. This council did ask for, because I was here a year ago, May, to put a park in here, make it 2-lane. I'm also very aware, I think most of you all, some of you, Jim and Dewey and Rodney, have been around the longest. They know I've been working for the city for many, many years, almost 30 years to be exact. I do know that your last engineer, or not the last one, the one prior, David Campbell, with much respect for the man, said he would never put another F-curb, high back, you can call them F-curbs, high backs, or he would put another one in this community. Anybody that owns property on Mountain Drive, if you go down and ask every single one of those property owners, they're furious about that high back curb. All you gotta do is look at them. They're beat up to hell. Why? Because tires beat on them. I mean, it's just a horrible design. Mountain Drive, when they did the ribbon curb, the 8x12 ribbon curb, was designed a lot like what Dewey was just saying, where the water sheds off the road across to the green space, puts a little swell, puts you either a type C catch basin or a yard basin, whatever, to direct it to an under drain or a retention pond, whatever you want, what you're having at the time. I think if you look at every road we have, including the last remodel that we just did on Calhoun that comes down Forest and heads down to Clement Taylor Park, you'll see that it's an 8x12 ribbon curb, and the water flows off into the little swell and it heads on into the pipe and heads on down. That's a good way of doing it. I can promise you one thing. Your staff that cuts that grass would much rather cut that grass against a ribbon curb and edge that than to do high back. They're horrible. So personally, I'm not a fan, and I put thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of foot of ribbon curb and high back curb. You all know I'm a site contractor. I've done it for years. What you have in front of you is a set of plans from an engineer that his plans come across the desk here at the city permitting department weekly, well known. I reached out to him. I paid for this out of my own pocket just to show you that there's another option. Nothing against the current engineer. I think they're doing what they were told to do. Okay? Can't blame them. They're just doing what they're told to do. I think. Okay? That's what it sounds like to me. But what you have in front of you is something that I did not have the PDF, so I could not give these plans, their plans, to someone else and have them design it for me. They looked at what we had, and he did this himself. I reached out to another engineer in this community that the city actually has on staff. You know, that does a lot of work for y'all. Matter of fact, he's the engineer after, I think, Mr. Braden, Rodney, I think it was you, the Melvin Park. I think you had found at one time that we spent almost $300,000 with the engineer at the time, and the plans still were never finished. And I stood in front of y'all as the chair of the committee for the Harbor Committee, and I said, look, we got an engineer in-house that's already on your payroll that will bring a set of plans back no longer than 60 days for $35,000 complete. And y'all accepted it, and he damn sure did what he said he was going to do for $35,000. To date, I think we've spent, don't hold me to this, because I'm still searching, but I think we spent close to $600,000 on this design here. So I personally asked both these engineers, what would they charge to start from start to finish? What would they charge to design this road for the city of Destin? $45,000 complete. I personally am doing a subdivision in Walton County right now, which is the same exact size land as this piece that we're talking about. They're designing a crisscross road. I'll send you all the plans if you want to see them. Installing the sanitary sewer system, the potable water system, and the stormwater system. Complete road, everything for $40,000. Now, I don't know where we've gotten to where we're at, but I also know, and I feel very comfortable saying this, because then again, I've got a lot of knowledge in this, that the design that they currently have is twice as big as what we need. I did hear the young lady say that it's adequate, it's the size we need. I just disagree, by far. I've had two other engineers look at it, and they feel that it is ridiculous huge. There's multiple ways of looking at this. Just about everything the city of Destin has is underground. It's underground for a reason. The retention ponds right here in the front cannot be used for anything. What we're not paying attention to is the ponds are sitting out front here are about approximately 4 feet deep. 4 feet, right here. Let me walk out that edge, right here. If you look at that wall right there, that wall is approximately 10 feet. If you look at the plans that have been presented to you, they're 11 feet deep. That means the bottom of that retention pond is deeper than that wall. Now, I personally do not believe, and I will put my hand on a Bible, do not believe you're going to find one engineer that is going to look you in the face and sign a piece of paper that says that that retention pond is safe to put a park in. Not going to happen. And for God's sakes, you're going to put, you know how many signs you're going to have out there, Kevin, that's going to say, hey, please don't walk in here if it's raining? No.
No, all due respect, Mike, and Mr. Mayor, I mean,
Go ahead.
this is, I think, a little unfair, one.
Why?
One, I mean, none of these engineering companies are on our contracts. None of them are here.
Right.
I respect you. I respect your experience, but this is who the city of Destin is contracted with for many, many years now.
Right.
And you're saying things based off your experience, which I respect.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody said, we're going to put a park in that pond, Mike. It's going to be 11 feet deep. It's green space. We're not doing it. I just think that this is, I mean, how are you going to present?
Am I allowed to finish, Mayor?
Well, here's what the problem is.
Yes, sir.
Is we put out an RFP for
Yes,
the
sir.
design of this road.
Project manager.
That's been talked
Why
about.
don't you put in an application to
So-
run
so-
our
already been
project
talked about.
management capital stuff?
So this is a he said, she said, we've got a contract with these people. If you want to put together a group, and if the council so chooses to present your own RFP, that's where it needs to be. You really shouldn't be standing up here dissing the company that we're working with, because you are.
That's your
And-
opinion, but I said I wasn't, but go ahead.
But I it's
expect
coming
that.
across that way, Mike.
I expect that.
So you show up here tonight with this, where was this? I've been mayor for almost 4 years.
How many
We-
pieces
we-
of property
we've
do
been-
you own in Destin, sir?
We've been coming across this for a long time.
How much property do you own in Destin yourself personally?
I own my piece of property.
I own quite a few, and I pay a hell of a lot of taxes. And to see my tax money being spent like this, and then, and I'm almost done, I'm almost done.
No, we're done. We're done for right now. If you want to apply to make a formal presentation, contact Ray, and you can do it, because this is not the discourse that this council needs to entertain at this moment. Now, if the council feels that different than that, you can overrule my idea, but right now, I don't think this is going the way it should. It's not fair to the group that came here and did their presentation, and the way you're presenting it is the discourse that I don't think is appropriate. And so, you're done.
It was never the intent of this presentation to disrespect the people we have under contract.
Exactly.
It was to try to arrive at a solution that would get us back to trying to build something that the policy of the council had directed. And on that note, I think the information that we needed from Mike was, did we have a group who thought they could engineer this stormwater differently? I think we do. I think the people that Mike talked to would be willing to look at this issue, and for a price that is reasonable, give us an alternative on the stormwater plan. The road plan, all the other plan, I don't have a bit of problem with what the engineers have done. The stormwater, I think, in fact, makes it impossible for us to go forward with the policy the city set, that would be a green place / park, and we didn't hear a definition of what park is, but it is, that was what the motion was. The motion was made at the council meeting after the workshop that you observed. There were no decisions made at the workshop because we don't make them at a workshop. So if, Mike, did this group give us any kind of a price and tell us that they could perhaps design the stormwater differently so that we could?
Let me just cut in real quick, because I don't want to create a legal issue with
Yes.
procurement.
That's what I'm worried about.
And so I was not city attorney when probably Atkins was originally hired. I may have still even been in high school, but it was probably through the RFQ process, which is a Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, where they don't initially submit prices.
Exactly.
It's like we did with the project manager contract today. And so if this council has a portion of that work that it wants to rebid out, we might have to go through that process again. So if this company is going to give an amount tonight, that could create issues with.
I won't bring that up. I won't bring that up.
Let me ask you another question, Kyle. Our continuing engineers that work with the city, can we assign them review to look at the stormwater?
So I don't recall the exact, there's a threshold that you can use your continuing service contractors. It was recently upped to the estimated cost of construction, I believe, being $4 million, and don't quote me on that because I'm going off the top of my head. I really, sitting here today, I don't know what the cost of this construction might be. So I don't really have a good answer to that tonight.
This construction is quite a bit over that according to the budget workshop.
If it exceeded that amount, then under the definition of continuing service contractor in the CCNA, then it would have to go through an RFQ process.
That's the problem that I was concerned about.
And I'm just.
Not so much what you were saying, Mike, but we got to be careful here.
I'll zip it on that.
Because that's just not how the business is done.
Understand.
You can't come in the 11th hour and say, wait a minute, we can do this cheaper.
No.
Because that's not how it's done,
okay,
even if you can do it cheaper.
Let's bypass that part. There's other options to do it this. There's other options to put this stormwater in and build the park we want. My concern was, Gary, was the depth of what this existing was going to be. I'm gonna wear a different hat, a fire commissioner. I'm not gonna sign my name on a safety issue like that. It's not gonna happen. So what else do we have? We do have infrastructure. There's all kind of ADS pipes and gravel, and there's all kind of different domes and chambers. There's all kind of things we can do. We've done it in roads all over the city of Destin to save that piece of property. Please keep in mind, I think, I could be wrong, but I think y'all have already purchased 3 townhomes down there, correct? And I think somewhere in the range of $340,000, correct? Each. So you spend $1 million so far in 3 little 20, 25-foot wide lots. Well, there's 20 lots across that retention pond area, the pond area. So if you took, Gary, $320,000 times 20, you're $6.4 million worth of land. That's $6.4 million worth of land that you guys are buying land so we can build this thing Why are you going to get rid of this land so we can't use it when it's $6 million worth of land? Number one. Number two, the retention pond. May I come to you, please?
This needs to be on the mic. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I will, okay. If you look at this retention pond, and God knows I built hundreds of them, this one's deep. No two ifs, is deep. But if you look at the base of it, the size of the base of that pond, if you took that design, I say we, the engineer of record for the Heritage Park, everything on that park, Gary, is a retention pond. It's 6 inches deep. But we took the volume of it, the ground area, the volume of it, of everything, and made it take the volume of the water that it needed for that parcel of land. So what I'm trying to get at is you could take this land right here and most likely get away with doing it 1 foot deep. The entire area, it won't look like a pond. It's now considered a swell. It holds the water that needs to be done to meet all our requirements. And now you've got one great big, when you look at the Heritage Park, you're going to walk up and say, that's a pond? You can't see it. It's only 6 inches deep. So take this entire area, keep it a park. 6 inches, you can't die. You're not going to flood. You're not going to drown in 6 inches of water because there's not going to be 6 inches of water in it. Take that entire area and raise the bottom up, but take it a broader area. It can be done very easily. And it gets what you want, it gets what they want, it gets what you want, it gets what we want.
Is that using underground retention
No,
stuff?
it's all on
So
top of
I
the
would
ground.
like to hear their response to that comment.
I'm sorry, sir?
I would like to hear the lady on the speaker's response
Perfectly
to
fine.
that comment,
Perfectly fine.
if you don't mind, because it sounds like it's a very easy thing to do.
It is
So,
a very easy thing to do.
can
She's
we
going to
get an
take the
answer to that,
calculations.
or- Is she still on there?
Nikki, go ahead and speak if you wish.
Yes, I'm not sure why he thinks you can do the pond in 1 foot depth. Based on the drainage area and the Northwest Florida Water Management District's criteria for design storms, and my ICPR models based on the geotechnical information, the depth is what the pond needs to be for that area in order to meet treatment and attenuation criteria.
Quick question. Would it be possible to do what Mr. Destin asked and put some swells in a little underdrain, either under the road or in between the medians, and grab the majority of the storage and then discharge it out there in the shallow pond? I'm going to call it a pond, a very shallow pond. Is that possible?
The median is not really going to provide the attenuation that is necessary. You could capture runoff in the median by changing the typical section,
Correct. Very correct.
but that's not really going to change the volume that's needed based on the Water Management District criteria.
Well, yes, if we put the pipe in gravel, correct?
I believe you're referring to exfiltration trench, which only provides stormwater treatment. It doesn't provide attenuation volume.
Correct. But the pond would do that, correct?
Correct. So
Thank you.
the pond would still need to be the same volume to provide attenuation. The exfiltration only provides treatment.
And are one of these options exfiltration that you just said?
I'm saying it's doable. Go.
So the options that you have there are wholesale replacements of the ponds. I believe, I don't know if it was it March? We had discussed a little bit, there could be like a dual option where you have a reduction of pond volume by doing some underground exfiltration or something like that. But no, these options that you're seeing right here are wholesale replacements to get a flat area as what was requested. And one of the things too, I don't know if Nikki might have mentioned this to you guys before, but even where the and I don't know, Mike, I don't know if your suggestion is to have vaults underneath the roadway.
Chambers or.
So those are more this retention system that we're talking about, where you're more of a larger scale vault. That is an option perhaps to be able to shift that underneath the roadway. There are going to be some cover requirements and things like that you would have to do that might be able to expand the usage of your green space, for tree plantings and things like that. But again, those vaults that you would more typically feel a comfort level to have under a roadway is that most expensive option that you're seeing in your packets. So I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Bagby?
Yes, sir, if you're done. No questions?
I don't have any questions for you.
Thank you, Mike.
It may have been Nikki, I don't even remember who mentioned that there's excess capacity in the large pond, and the small pond is exactly what we need. What is the excess capacity in the large pond? How much?
Nikki, do you have the exact numbers on how much additional capacity we have in Pond 2?
Yes, let me pull it up really quick. So for Pond 2, for the 25-year, 96-hour storm event, which is the storm event that we need to provide a foot of freeboard, which would be from elevation 17 to elevation 18. Currently, we're at elevation 16.22 based on my modeling. So we still have about 0.75 feet of volume across the pond that could provide additional treatment and attenuation.
So to Mike's point, if we expanded the edge of the pond, Pond 2, I'm not even worried about Pond 1, Pond 2, out as far as possible on that land and as close to the sidewalk or whatever, it wouldn't be 11 feet deep, is that correct? It wouldn't have to be 11 feet deep. Maybe that's a better way to phrase that question.
So the maximum depth of the pond is roughly about 10 feet, and that is only at the high point in the road where there's a hill. The vast majority of the pond is only about 7 feet deep from elevation 11 to the inner berm elevation of 18. So that's about 7-foot depth. There's only a very small portion that is 10 feet deep.
Okay, now I have to go back to my little map thingy here. But you didn't answer my question. So I'll ask my question again.
I apologize.
If you increase the area of the pond as much as possible, that means, and you already have excess capacity, that means you can reduce the depth of the pond. Is that correct?
Correct. However, the council wanted the wandering shared use path, so that kind of narrowed down how large and how I could grade the pond. So in some areas, if the shared use path can be closer to the roadway, I can widen the pond and that might shallow it up a little bit. But since there's that huge hill area, and it's just such a skinny parcel, it has to be deeper to get the required volume. If it was more rectangular shaped, it could probably be much shallower than it has to be since it's an odd shape, like an oblong shape.
And is it possible to take Pond 1 any deeper?
No, based on the borings, with a factor of safety, and the seasonal high groundwater table that was found with the borings, we can't take Pond 1 any deeper.
Okay. And then explain to me why we put the crown of the road in the, because that was one of the questions I had 2 months ago, which is why it slopes to the outside. It could slope to the inside, and then we could put some kind of capture and either feed it into one of the ponds or, but we didn't do that. Why didn't we do that?
JB, I think that's a question for you on the typical section.
Yeah, he's coming up.
So the modified section we see right now is a reduction of the original, and just ultimately the standard typical section that you look to is the raised median and sloping to the outside. A lot of that is driver expectancy. If you're sloped to the inside, you might feel that, and then especially going around curbs. It may be possible to put that slope to the inside and have stormwater retention along the median. I'm not sure what impacts that would have on landscaping, or Nikki, ultimately what kind of reduction that would take to the ponds. I think we need to run those calculations to really give you a good picture of that.
Yeah, because I guess my issue is, and I pulled up my definitions of retention pond and my definitions of, well, not mine, Webster's definitions of parks. They're not exactly the same thing. And this wouldn't qualify as a park. And one of the problems I've had continuously, and we talked about this last time, was with the landscaping, or what I consider the over-landscaping plan. Because when you have a retention pond and you have that much landscaping around it, what happens when all those trees shed and all that grass gets cut, and after about 2 years, what happens to the retention capability of that pond? It goes away. Not completely, but over time, it goes. I mean, we're seeing that in some developments in this city already that haven't been here for that long.
Routine maintenance would be required, yes.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to go out and dig it out. Right.
And that's also a reason for that factor of safety, where you're cutting that infiltration rate that's measured in half, is to be able to account for that siltation over time and that fouling up, what we call it, of your pond based on what it's collecting. So yeah, that is also included somewhat in the design process.
And the way we have it draining toward that pond off the crowned roadway, okay, that adds more silt, dirt, whatever you want to refer the technical terms to it, sand around here. And so that requires it, or that causes it to fill up. By the way, that roadway stuff, that doesn't perk like that sand that's there now. It doesn't perk near as well. You get a little crust on the top there over time, and then it becomes a lake. And so I get what everybody's saying, and we're just going to all agree to disagree. And my view is, would I like to see this in it? Yes, I would. I'd like to see a cheaper, flatter, but it's going to be whatever the six of us want.
Mayor, let me make. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I addressed when Mike stood up here and said how expensive this has been. I just went on the record, this has been 14 years and 4 sets of council that have sat up here, and every time there's a new council, sometimes it may be that second or third or fourth person that's on their, 8-year roll, and they in their, heart want something, or they've been told by their constituents. It was a 4-lane road until about 2019. And then there was a group sitting up here, and I sat out there and watched them and said, we are not going to have 4 lanes. It'll be it'll be like Airport Road. And so we shut it down from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So the amount of money that this company has charged us, I don't think we've paid them enough the amount of pain and anguish they've gone through trying to deal with too many people and their own personal agenda on what they think is best for the city and not really looking at, in about 10 years, we're going to be like, what were we thinking? It should have been 4 lanes. We now have a congestion on the back roads. But that's my own personal opinion. So I just want everyone to understand, y'all have done a phenomenal job, and you've dealt with a very different set of council every 2, 3, 4 years it rolls out. So thank you for what you're doing, and we appreciate your patience tonight while we try and figure out how we can save some money after 14 years of just throwing y'all back from phase 60% to 30%. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brayden and Mr. Destin, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a comment, and we will do something.
Thank you, Mayor.
A couple motions that are recommended, or one of y'all can make one up.
Thank you, Mayor. It is true, you know, we've had 4 councils or 14, 15, 16 years on this. But I've been here 8 years, and in my first 4 years, the council was repeatedly lied to. Rebel and I kept saying this is a 4-lane. Staff at that time, which is no longer here, kept saying, no, it's a 2-lane. It's a 2-lane, that's all we kept hearing was a 2-lane. We kept saying, no, it was a 4-lane. They kept assuring us it was 2 lanes. Well, technically it was 2 lanes, but it was being designed, as you said, for 4 lanes. They put 2 lanes in and then eventually put 4 lanes. So that's been a lot of my problem with this whole thing. And then when it was being designed as 4 lanes, where was all that stormwater going? Because it seems like those retention ponds were basically the same size as these retention ponds with twice the asphalt.
Yes, as Nikki mentioned before, they were in the same spots, roughly the same size. They had steeper side slopes to account for more capacity. So to make it more user-friendly, we've reduced those side slopes, but the overall footprint remains the same.
Maybe the footprint of those ponds was also slightly larger. In the previous plans, there wasn't the meandering shared use path, so there was a little more usable, gradable area for Pond 2. And then just the way the radius was designed on the roadway, Pond 1 was also quite a bit larger, and then as well as the 3-to-1 side slopes that provided a lot more volume for those ponds.
So it just seems like, to me, at a 4-lane, we need twice the volume that this 2-lane needs. And it doesn't seem like, we've reduced it a little bit from hearing, but we haven't reduced it in half.
Just keep in mind that the shape of the ponds, there's a big swing in volume when you change the side slopes of the ponds because of the oblong shape of the ponds. If they're more rectangular, it would be more dramatic of a size difference between the 4-lane and the 2-lane option.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Mayor,
Do something.
I'm going to make a motion.
I'm not going to talk anymore. I want to get a better.
I'm going to make a motion to see if we're going to get off dead center here. I think the proposal from Atkins is for $40,000 or so, you will redesign Pond 2.
Yes, that's correct.
And give us construction drawings to place it underground infiltration.
Correct, yes.
At that point, we can do our comparisons to decide whether it is worth spending the money. The cheapest option is around $700,000, I think, the one that you gave us of the 3. We just paid $900,000 for a little over 3,000 square feet of townhouses. We've got another $1.5 million to cover the rest of that right of way. At that point, this area that we're now going to make available as flat ground to have a park is looking like a pretty good bargain. So for the $40,000 that Atkins will charge us to redesign it, at that point, we will be able to do our comparisons to see if we want to go ahead and turn this into the slash park green space that we anticipated. And that if the money comparisons come out unfavorably and 4 of these council members think that's the case, then that's the end of it. So my motion would be to direct Atkins to go ahead and do the engineering to turn Pond 2 into underground infiltration so that we at least we'll have the option to turn that area into the park that has already been designated as.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second.
Or Bobby can second.
Just real quick, Dewey, just to clarify, because there is an addendum that's attached to the agenda item, I think you're directing Lance to enter into that addendum, correct? For that? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, add that, Ray. Okay, let's take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Thank you, guys, for enduring that.
And thanks for
4E, no, break. can everybody make it back to their seats in the next minute and a half? Oh, you didn't caffeine, but I need caffeine. Don't, but I do. Everybody take a seat. Let's go ahead and call this meeting back to order.
Tell Johnny I'm eating his cookies.
All righty. 4:30 comes around early, my friends. We'll stay here as long as we want to, but I really don't want to. All right. So let's press on. Webb, take it away. Flood insurance update. Whoever's handling that.
Yes, sir. Next up, we have a very brief presentation by our Public Works Director, Michael Burgess. This is going to outline what we can expect to see in flood insurance and the implication for changes in Destin businesses and residents. Michael?
Michael's, here he comes. He heard the drum roll.
Flood map, we need your water management district flood information.
This is the Public Works Emmys.
He's getting here.
And the nominee is. There you go, Michael. Take it away.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm just going to give you a brief briefing on a recent change that'll no doubt affect, is there some feedback? No doubt affect, let me try this one. I did. That's much better. Tonight I'd like to brief you on a recent change that will no doubt affect several home and business owners in our community. Specifically, these changes deal with flood insurance, and specific to that, the way that flood insurance premiums are now calculated. As you all may be aware, the city participates in the National Flood Insurance Program and has for over 30 years. Participation in this program allows both residential and non-residential properties, with a few exceptions, to secure federally backed flood insurance. The city also participates in the Community Rating System, a program that allows Destin residents and businesses to enjoy discounted premiums. I'm pleased to report that the city recently completed a recertification audit, and we remain a Class 6 CRS community that provides up to a 20% discount on those premiums. Specifically, tonight's briefing will deal with the flood insurance premium calculations and the manner in which FEMA will be calculating those moving forward. In the past, the calculation process was pretty straightforward. From an elevation certificate, a document I'm sure several of you are familiar with, policy originators were able to extract certain property characteristics and other metrics, and from that go to a published table and tell you what your premium was going to be. The types of information they would extract would include the base flood elevation, lowest floor elevation, foundation type, what zone you were in, etc. Under FEMA's new program called Risk Rating 2.0, the National Flood Insurance Program, their new methodology has changed. I'll just choose the arrows. Some things have changed and some things haven't changed. The things that haven't changed in the program include the following. Existing policies cannot increase, their premiums can't increase by more than 18% per year. There is a mandatory purchase requirement, so if your structure is located in Zone A or AE or AO or VE, your mortgage company, if you have a mortgage on your home, will still require flood insurance coverage. Pre-firm, and those are homes that were built before in Destin, probably before 1977 or thereabouts, and newly mapped areas will receive subsidies on their flood insurance premiums. The ability to assign or transfer a policy from one owner to the next owner is still available. And then lastly, we are proud to remain a Class 6 community. Okay, what has changed? If you go on the web and just type in Risk Rating 2.0 on YouTube, there are several videos out there that you can take a look at that have been published by FEMA and others, some that are highly tout this new rating methodology and others that are critical of it, so I advise you to certainly take a look at both of those. But they have a new algorithm by which they will calculate your premium. You don't really go to the flood insurance manual, which used to be published every 6 months. It's pretty straightforward how to calculate a premium then, not so much now. So as of October 1st of last year, any new business or new policies use this algorithm to calculate the premiums. And as of a couple months ago, any renewals would be using this new methodology. The primary methodology for doing that is a computer program, a portal, that your insurance agent would input various and sundry information about your structure into the portal, and it would calculate the premium on their behalf. There are no more published rate tables. They are phasing out some of the former policy types to include PRP as a preferred risk policy. MPPP was a program by which if you didn't secure flood insurance on your own, your mortgage company could do that on your behalf. And then lastly, SFR. Well, I'm going to go into each one of these in just a little bit more detail in a moment. I'll just go ahead and skip the rest of this slide because we'll get into that. Okay, calculating the premiums, the new factors that they will be considering is the proximity to a flooding source. That could be a river or even the Great Lakes or the ocean. Flood frequencies. Previously, they just looked at the 1% annual chance event, which is called the 100-year storm. It's a misnomer, but it's what most people are familiar with. The cost to rebuild and replace your structure. The construction type. Is it a frame home? Is it a masonry home? What is the foundation? There used to be about 9 different types of foundations, and they've reduced that number. The building occupancy. I thought this was a unique change, but if you are homesteaded in your home, you know, it's your house, you live in it, there's a fee, right? So there would be a premium. But if it's a rental, it'll be higher. There's a surcharge because it's not your primary residence. And then FEMA is calling this program Risk Rating 2.0 Equity in Action. That's evidenced by higher home values seeing an increase in their premiums. You can again Google Risk Rating 2.0 on YouTube, and that little link at the bottom that you can barely see there, it kind of looks pink there, that is a YouTube video that I would recommend you take a look at. The retiring policy types, preferred risk policies, again, if you're in Zone X, you could get that type of flood insurance policy. It was kind of a low risk area, and the premiums were reflective of that. They weren't that much. The mortgage portfolio protection program, again, that covers forced placement of insurance. And then submit for rate. The old flood insurance manuals used to have a thing called submit for rate. If you were so far below the base flood elevation, they just didn't publish the rates. You had to submit your structure's unique information to get a rate. You didn't want to be in that category. But they're phasing that program out. Okay, a few statistics here. This is for Florida, and then we're going to talk about zip code 32541 for a moment. But you can see from the total number of policies statewide, 1.7 million, only 27% of them under the new program will see policy decrease. So the other 73% will see a policy premium increase of some sort. And it could be mild and it could be not so mild. For 32541, now this does include Regatta Bay and this does include Kelly because they're all in the same zip code with us. But again, 41.5 will see a premium decrease. And then the remainder, the 58.5 will be an increase of some sort. For residential structures, and I thought I'd key in on this one, only 25.6% will see a decrease. The remainder will see some sort of an increase. And this will take effect probably, if it hasn't already, will complete the cycle probably in April of next year. Okay, and one other thing I wanted to, just for those that are watching live and those that may view this later on, there's a link to a video in there. You, of course, can't click on a YouTube video and get to the link, but I would encourage you to Google Risk Rating 2.0 on YouTube. There are several very good videos out there. If you have any other questions, if your flood insurance premium jumps up, certainly call your insurance agent and ask them why. That's a great place to start. And the ultimate solution is to call me, Michael Burgess, your floodplain administrator and CRS coordinator, at 850-837-4242. Now, there was a question earlier today about how do I know if I'm in a floodplain? Okay, so what is my specific situation? So for a moment, I'm going to show you how you can do that. This is a live tutorial, so forgive me.
Will you be able to put that like on our site as here's a way to find out because that's what I was going to ask was, do we as the city have like our zones as the areas of the city specified? If not.
Okay, this is the website I'm going to be going to. I'll leave it up there for just a moment if anybody wants to just kind of take a screenshot of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, so what I've typed in Google in the search pane is Northwest Florida Water Management District, the acronym, Flood Portal. Just hit enter. This is the very top one. Or you can just type in that link I provided earlier. Now there is a little trick to this, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. Let it load completely. There we go. We're getting there. So you click on Okaloosa. See, nothing really happens. Just kind of sitting there. You have to scroll down and then click that. Okay, and of course you have to agree to all the terms and conditions. In the upper right-hand corner, you can type in an address. And it'll kind of help you populate that. Okay, so now 4100 Indian Bayou Trail, Destin, Florida. That's where we are right now. So we just click on that. There we go. So this is the building, this is the lot where we are right now. So if you zoom out, we're not in a floodplain right here. But if you do zoom out, and we go, say, go over to Holiday Isle. Okay, here's Holiday Isle. And the blue, any shade of blue is typically an A or an AE zone or an AO zone. The pink, and it doesn't really pick up that well on the screen here, but this area right in here is pink. That is the VE zone, the velocity zone, where you will experience some level of wave action associated with that. If you zoom in really tight, okay, and this looks like a vacant lot here, so I think I'm okay clicking on that one. It will give you a breakout of your lot specific to what zone it's in. So this one right here has 12% in the AO zone and 88% in the VE zone. So if you're curious, what your individual situation is, or certainly if you're looking to buy a property, this is a great place to do a little of your own homework. Okay, and if you have any questions, again, feel free to call me, Michael Burgess, at the city. And no, it's fine. That's why we're here. We'll post it on Facebook too, Catherine said. So I'm available to answer any questions you may have. And I appreciate your patience and attention.
That was good, Michael. Thank you. I was wondering how we could help people figure out, but it's like literally house to house, area to area. It's not like you could say this area of like Main Street is in flood zone such and such, and this end of Main Street is in this area. Because I live on a high area, I'm not in a flood zone, but directly across the street, as you know, because of the stormwater drainage,
Right.
they're in a flood zone.
So there are two types of information available on this map, amongst many others. There's a zone, so you can be in zone AE. But there are different base flood elevations for zone AE. You may be in a 9, you may be in an 8, a 7. All of that is depicted on the map. So if you click on your lot and your lot rises from the water up to the road, you'll see the different topographic lines and the different designations. Now, specific to your flood insurance premium, this algorithm does not require an elevation certificate. If you can believe that, it always has. So using space age technology, they are able to determine what level of risk your home is at. I would always advise getting an elevation certificate in addition. It's only a couple of $100s, but it may save you thousands. And if you need to know how to do that, contact Michael Burgess.
Or Catherine can add it to the Facebook
Or Catherine
post,
can add it
right?
to the
Thank
Facebook
you,
page.
Catherine.
All right, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Job well done. All right. Webb, you still with us?
I am still here. Next up, we have baseball conversion costs at Destin Elementary School. On June 20th of 2022, council did instruct staff to bring back the cost to convert the existing baseball field at the elementary school to meet high school standards. Renovations at Destin Elementary baseball field could include repairs to the existing backstop, first baseline fence, field lighting, safety netting, mound construction, infield reconditioning, and other things. The price could be in the range of $40,000 to $50,000, and this is an unbudgeted item. Per council's request, we did want to bring this item to council, and we do expect more information as it relates to Morgan's and other field information to be brought back to council on August 15th, which will be our next meeting. And Lisa and I believe Ryan is in the audience. I can't tell, but and maybe some other crew are here tonight. If you have any questions concerning this item.
Mr. Wagner?
Is this also addressing the schedule conflicts that people are concerned about?
No, it's just a cost analysis. They're going to bring us another cost analysis for Morgan's. Ms. Aber.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everybody here, we do have a budget workshop on August 11th, the final budget. And I think that we need to make sure that Ms. Lisa and her team can be there to make sure we get what we really need to on what has to be added into our budget to take care of some of our most important areas of the city, especially like the elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else? No questions? Thank you, Webb. Let's go to announcements.
All right, let me breeze through these pretty quick here. Okaloosa County Schools will start back on Wednesday, August 10th. The library will be closed on Friday, August 19th for staff to attend an annual staff training day, and will open as usual on Saturday, August 20th. Also want to throw a huge thanks out to crews all the way from code compliance to public works to recreation for a very successful big truck day that occurred last Friday. And as you all are aware, that is always a big fan favorite with the kids and the local families. So great job. The Destin City Council will host a budget workshop, as was just said, on Thursday, August 11th. That will be at 5:30. It will also be streamed on our YouTube channel. For the month of August, randomly selected Destin households will receive information to participate in Destin's 2022 community survey. There will be a follow-up survey for all residents to participate at a later date. This survey is going to be administered by Polco. This is a survey that was approved by council earlier in the year, and Polco will oversee this survey, and the letters that are going out to the households will be signed by Mayor Jarvis. And last but not least, our primary election early voting that will occur from August 13th to August 20th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Destin Community Center. And that is all I have for tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're going to move into item 5, which is our public hearings. After our distinguished city attorney reads each one of these ordinances off, I'll open it up for public comment. We're going to start with item 5A, second reading of ordinance 22-09-CN, the exclusive solid waste franchise agreement with Waste Management. Take it away, Kyle.
Thanks, Mayor. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2209CN, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for the exclusive franchise to Waste Management, Inc. of Florida, a private corporation for the collection and disposal of all residential and commercial trash, garbage, and other refuse within the city limits, providing for the collection of residential recyclable materials within the city limits, providing for definitions, grant of franchise, limits of franchise, term, franchise considerations, assignment, bankruptcy or insolvency, default, rate changes, rights of first refusal, restoration, compliance with laws, liability insurance, hold harmless, workers' compensation, performance bond, right to require performance, dispute resolution, operations during dispute, standard of performance, curbside recyclable materials collection and disposal recycling program, collection services and operation, office and collection hours, collection equipment, disposal routes and schedules, grantee personnel, spillage and litter, storms and other emergencies, non-discrimination provision, rates and charges, rate changes, delinquent accounts, accounting, right to audit, complaints, charge for failure of performance, venue, sovereign immunity, conflicting ordinances and resolutions, savings clause, and providing for an effective date. And with that, Mayor, I would just note this is a public hearing, and I'll turn it back over to you.
And seeing how it is, a public hearing, I'm going to open this portion of this hearing for comments from the public. I see someone's already staged. Ma'am, come on up.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I'm going to try to make this quick. I believe you guys received an email today from another citizen in reference to the smart video. Yes, so you're aware of that situation with the smart video being on a different property than his property when he went to look at his account? So when that comes up, just know that that's not, but I don't want that to be part of my minutes. So I wrote down what I wanted to say. Up until now, I've been concerned about overflowing garbage cans with but now with the Waste Management franchise agreement, my focus has become more broad across the city, including code compliance. So let's do our best to help code compliance. Why do I say that? By doing things we can help them enforce codes already on the books. At the last meeting, you all spent a lot of time talking about waste management. Before your discussion started, I had one simple ask, to require the number of addresses on all cans throughout the city. At that moment, I gave several examples to support my request. All examples documented through many of my HOA's fines and violations committee meetings. However, I had no idea when I sat down that Waste Management was going to get up before you after my comments and propose having all accounts charged for overages and contamination fees. I acknowledge that that no longer exists, just for the record. While at the same time stating these issues are mainly due to the short-term rental properties. So much of your time was wasted because no one interjected to say there's already a code on the books that is meant to deal with this issue. Waste Management also got it backwards when they said 17 of my properties on my street were not paying. It was 3 that were not paying. I confirmed this today, and they also accidentally picked up my cans when my account was paid in full. But what's important about that is the reason that they came out and they put numbers on our cans was because there were delinquent accounts, and that's how they would know at a future date to pick those up. And I want to make that a point here. So, I sat with you all here in the chambers until the end of the last meeting at 10 p.m. so I could tell you about the short-term rental ordinance that covered the short-term rental trash issues that were discussed. So, how do we help code compliance? If we put numbers on the cans, it would allow for easy identification of non-compliant properties by the code compliance department. A simple proactive drive by the code compliance down all city streets would then allow code compliance to quickly take time, stamped photos that they could easily forward to the code compliance office staff via the in-truck computers to send out violations. So here's my question. How do we know who's paying for their garbage? Are you paying for my garbage? Am I paying for your garbage? Who's paying for whose garbage when we don't even know who the cans belong to? I spent a lot of time today putting together an email to send you guys a bunch of pictures. I decided not to do it, which leads me to the next thing that I just want to finish up with. If you'll allow me that, Mayor, I would appreciate it. So if I'd sent you that email, in that email I would have said, so how do we know what property that can belongs to? I had a ton of pictures of cans where you can't determine what property it belongs to. So can code compliance identify 100% certainty which property all the unmarked cans belong to? No. Is it possible the cans belong to a neighboring property? Maybe. How do we know? We don't. Is it possible the cans belong to a property across the street? Maybe. How do we know? We don't. Is it possible the cans belong to a property down the street? Maybe. How do we know? We don't. How does Waste Management know if the trash and or the recycle can they empty has an active paid account? How do they know? How does the City of Destin know? How do we enforce those codes? How do we know? We don't know. Does the City of Destin, who has 2 city ordinances requiring properties to have residential trash service, know 100% if all the residential properties in the city are paying for solid waste removal as required under these city ordinances? How does the city know? We don't know. Lastly, thank you. How does the City of Destin Code Compliance Department know what property to violate when there is a violation of one of the 2 trash ordinances, when cans are not properly marked and are not on the correct property? They don't. How do we know? We don't. My only ask through all of this is please make sure the numbers for all the addresses are on the cans so they're easily identified by Waste Management and by the City Code Compliance.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment portion of this public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 22-09-CN on second reading.
Have a motion? Ms. Aber.
I wanted to speak on behalf of a resident that's emailed us on behalf of about 10 folks over there off of Luke. They had a can next to his driveway, and workers that were building a house across the street moved his can and his neighbor's can so they could make way for the large truck making a delivery at the same moment. Then he came home and found out that his trash was now 3 doors down, and his neighbor's was in front of his house. The way he knew was his trash can had a cracked lid and his neighbor didn't, so he switched them out, easy as it was. He said, I simply just did the swap. He said this is also obvious with the short-term rental occupants that whenever they just fill up their trash, they fill up the others. The examples are just a few. He went on to Waste Management's code, to their website to look at his house to find out about what was associated for his pickups. And when he looked at his address, it was a house that he no longer owns or resides in. He's called to correct this, but as of today, it still hasn't happened. So overall, long story short, Waste Management could help code compliant, help the city maintain who owns which trash cans, who's not paid, and who needs to be paying, if we could just get numbers put on them. And I agree, I think it's an awesome change, and I don't know if that's already being done. I remember we talked a couple weeks back, you said something about you had 600 accounts that were delinquent. You were just going to try and get a list of them and figure out who they were. Running down Main Street, I found one of those people because their trash was overloaded. They had garbage out front, had been there for 3 weeks, and code compliance was kind enough to assist me with those customers, because as I was running by the 5th time, I just went up the driveway, knocked on the door, and asked them, are you paying for your trash? Because it's been here for 2 weeks. She goes, I know, it's been there a minute. We've called them to come get it. I said, well, you haven't paid your bill. We did, honey, and oh, no, I just paid it today. And they really hadn't paid it today, because when I called you guys, they paid it 4 days later. Needless to say, code went and said, drag your stuff up until you get your thing rescheduled. I think it's a great fix. That way, if the numbers haven't paid, you guys can yank their cans, and then they don't have a way to load up cans that's sitting on the street for a week or week and a half. That's my thought.
And so we don't browbeat this particular issue, I'm going to ask Mr. Doug and the representatives to talk about the solution that is probable, possible, and can be done so we don't have to talk about it for 2 hours. So you've heard the complaints.
Yep.
Give us some answers or some ideas.
To answer that question there is a ordinance that was, and I don't know when it was passed. Code may be able to help me, but, you know, if they're delinquent in 45 days, you keep the can another 45 days. So that's out of our hands. I get what you're saying as far as they're not paying, pick it up and take it away, but that does prevent us at 90 days, unfortunately.
And I'm not sure about the delinquent accounts and how many there were. I don't remember that number, but to Ms. Bell's point also, so periodically, our team goes through and does a partial data analysis and looks at all of the homes in the city that can receive garbage service. And through ground verification, I know Jake's team goes out and verifies that with their eyes, and we use smart truck technology as best as possible. We've identified another 202 that need service activated. So they either have a can and they're not paying for it, or some scenario like that. And the letters have actually gone out to those residents. I'd communicated that back to Webb just to give them a heads up in case the city gets a call, because in fact you have an ordinance that requires you to have service. So we're working through that process.
What, do you have a way of suggesting that maybe we change our ordinance and come off the 90 days, bring it back to about maybe 30? Would that fix it, help it?
I mean, these are your rules. I mean, it delays the process and keeps the delinquency going.
You
I
can
can
change
speak
your
to
own
the-
codes, and I think the question is for them, what makes sense for them. We can change it however council wants it.
So Doug, your company doesn't like having delinquent trash collecting folks or people not on the mandatory trash collection program. So what would you like for us to do to help you facilitate that? And what will your company do to facilitate that? Go ahead, Webb.
Well, I was just going to address part of that question, which is when this was done, and I won't go into the details because it would be a long story, but back in 2011, that ordinance was changed to that to accommodate kind of a billing cycle, and we could absolutely look at that if we wanted to see if that was still the best method in today's environment, because things have changed greatly since 2011 and how we handle our solid waste.
I just want to hear from the professionals. These guys are trying to make a profit, so I'm sure they have a plan that far exceed our expectations if they want to make money.
Yeah, I mean, so most contracts are 45 days because, you know, it's the benefit of the doubt, right? You forget to pay, something happens, and we pick up your trash. You know, but past 45 days, everybody loses. You know, so 90 is excessive, but again, we'll do whatever you need us to do. But most contracts are up 45, and that's through the whole panhandle.
Will the numbering of trash cans facilitate you're keeping track of this, or who to pick up or who not? Or is that an operational issue from y'all's standpoint, or is that our problem?
Did you say numbering the cans?
Yeah, either put an address on the, you know, you're like, I live on Mars Street, so if there's an 804 on there, that's mine. Because that's my, you don't have to put my street on there, you just put my unit number. Would that help facilitate it? You know, somebody's gonna play musical cans like they did in this particular guy's case? Or, see, we don't have this issue in my area, you know, where I live.
We do. We do.
No, not on Mars Street, we don't.
Oh, okay. Around the corner we do.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Our houses are 190 feet apart, so.
I mean, you want to answer it?
It's an operational thing. I mean, if you think it would work, I mean, that's not something we've discussed through a contractor.
Yeah. So I mean, numbering cans, there's a lot that goes into it as far as pricing, getting a crew out there to do that. We've got prices before, especially in the holiday aisle area, to do all of their cans. And you think it's simple as slapping a sticker on or anything like that? We've got some outrageous quotes for that area. I'm serious. I mean, that consulting fee is nothing, that little extra they want compared to what we got for stickers on 600 cans.
So when you were going to do the penalty and charge for overage and all that, how were you gonna tell whose can was who you was gonna charge? When you was on a road with a bunch of townhomes that had 30 cans on it?
So some areas like that, we were unable to tell, so it just gets lost in the system. They do have algorithms on this, and I've been working with the engineers a lot on, I had a particular truck that needed a server on it, a new box, and basically working with them to figure out why the address did not go, with the service. And basically what happened was, went into algorithms, all that are used to figure out that these Google Earth, Street View, everything like that. There's a team that says, yes, that's definitely 123 Main Street. And, we go from there. There is some things that they're working on as far as to make that better. Because at this point, it is a tool, But most of the times, we were finding that if two driveways are next to each other, the mailbox is there, and both put the can at that, on the inside of their driveways, we couldn't tell whose it was. So
How
it
do
went a lot.
how do you know who's paying and who's not?
How do we know who's paid?
How do you know
It's on an OBU. So every driver has a list of a customer list with addresses, who pays and who doesn't.
So how do you know what can goes what address when Mike Buckingham
So
is?
benefit of the doubt, they're gonna pick it up if they don't know the address.
Can people put their own spray paint number on their can? Is that authorized by your company?
I don't know if I can answer that, but I mean,
So my next question is, how does our code officers know who's in violation and who's not? How do they know who's paying? We're supposed to have trash service. How do they know who's paying, who's not?
so they get a monthly report, you mean, of non-payment or people that are on cutoff report, written off, stuff like that. So they get a report monthly, and, we were just communicating this morning about a couple addresses to get situated. Like, I think someone brought up an address they were working on, I think on Main Street. We were already working on that with code 2 weeks prior, trying to figure out, did this person pay? They told us they paid, they told code, and it got resolved. It just sometimes takes longer than we want.
So I can get together with about 10 or 15 of my neighbors, and we can all shove our cans together and only one pay, and the rest of them will get picked up. That's what you're telling me.
No, so at that point, we code, and normally they call and say, Jake, I need you to come out to this street, and we stand there, and there has been times that I'm sitting there with code knocking on doors. And we
So
don't pick 'em up.
when Kevin went out the other day, and there was a trash can sitting across the street on the property line, empty lot, how do you know how does code know whose can that is, who to find for a trash can being out there? There's not a number on it.
So that can is correct, that's one that was sitting on the lot. Unfortunately for my drivers, they're there on the service day. So they don't notice a can. If, you're driving home, you notice, hey, this can's still out there. To the driver, they want to see a can out. So it's kind of a difficult thing there. And they don't know, there's a lot of customers that will put their can across the street in a vacant lot just because they don't want, a sprinkler or the grass to die, anything like that. So it's kind of, they'll
So
pick it up.
what you said earlier is it just basically costs too much money to put an address on a can.
Well, you want to,
All right, I'll answer that. So not necessarily, but I mean, who's going to pay for that, right? So we haven't gone down that road of who would pay to have the cans marked. I mean, we haven't had that discussion. So if that's something that staff needs to, talk to us about, we could get quotes on what it would cost to do that. Absolutely.
Because I don't know how our code enforcement knows, because if you have a trash can out and it's out on Sunday and it's not supposed to be there, they have no idea whose trash can it is and who's supposed to, if the neighbors calls there's a trash can there, who are they going to cite for that can?
So, and to your point, and this came up because it was brought to our attention, last week or sometime, about a particular can, same situation. What we need to do is coordinate with code enforcement, to be told that, hey, there's a can that's sitting here, it's been here for a week or a day or however many. And what we did in about 5 minutes is we had the drivers check the surrounding homes. They all had the cans they were supposed to have. So we put a ticket in to have that can picked up. I mean, it's an imperfect system, but that's how we handled that. And that's how we would handle all of them. We get the information, we go through the process. We have 2 ops specialists that sit in Fort Walton. They deal with this all the time. So, I mean, is it really kind of a tidy process? Not exactly, but with coordination with code, enforcing the code, and working through our people, we can pretty much take care of most of those issues.
But it's safe to say on the record that you don't want anybody not paying.
Yes.
Mr. Destin, and
Yes,
then
sir.
I want Kim to weigh in. Go
I'm a
ahead,
little
sir.
confused. My cans all have numbers on them. There are cans out in the environment that don't have numbers on them?
Are you speaking to serial numbers or?
They've got a series of
The
numbers. I
address.
don't know what they are. but-
Yeah, they're serial numbers as far as, that tells us a production code, where it was made and everything like
Okay, so
that.
that doesn't identify me as a customer at all?
No, that actually is just more for manufacturing.
Okay, so it sounds like we do need some way to identify. Now, I go back a long ways. I remember when you and I, in Waste Management in the city, sent out stickers that you put on your can every month. The
Right.
problem was,
Yep.
yeah, whatever it was, half the time people didn't remember to put their stickers out, and it got to be really chaotic. But if we can get numbers on the cans, at least we'll know who the can belongs to. And if you guys have an increase in the amount of money you collect by 15, 10, 20%, whatever it is, I would think that would offset putting the numbers on there. So that's something probably that's going to be simple that we could work toward to try to identify, because you need to get paid for every can you pick up. And
We tell people that you're going to give us a sticker to our can, pick them up. Here's my bill, let me get my sticker.
I notice you don't have a paper or pen, but I need a new can. I got a big giant crack in mine.
That's the
Kim,
4th time you said that.
I know.
I've been counting, just to let you know.
And
So, have you gotten it yet?
not yet.
Okay.
Kim,
This is just a point of clarification. It's just a point of clarification from earlier. So the 45 days that we discussed and the 90 days is not in the code. So there's no change that has to be required, that would be required for the code. It's in the proposed franchise agreement, those timeframes, which is what you're talking about today. So if you do change it, you just take it out of the franchise agreement, no code amendment. Well, Kyle prepared the franchise agreement. I'll let him respond.
You could make a minor modification like that without going back. I would, on the other modifications, and I was going to pipe up later, but I might as well now since I've got the mic. On the other potential modifications relating to the address, though, if that's the route council wants to go, I would recommend, and I know your opinion, Mayor, but just for the rest of council, if that's the route that council wants to go, I would recommend maybe continuing second reading to the next meeting to allow us time to negotiate that point with Waste Management, because I don't want to try and sit here and craft language tonight in the ordinance to insert and then adopt the ordinance and then have issues come up later related to who's paying for putting the addresses on and stuff like that. So that would be my.
in that case, do you think that is something that you all would support doing? Because if we can up your collections by a good percentage, then it pays for itself. And I would certainly support that tonight if that's something that you all think is worth doing.
So I'm hearing this correctly by saying that you want to number the cans as part of the franchise agreement.
So that you can make sure you get paid, and we can make sure people are complying with the mandatory garbage.
yeah, it gives us 2 tools. Gives you a tool to get paid, gives our code enforcement a tool to hold people's feet to the fire to obey our ordinance, which is mandatory trash pickup. In other words, we have the tool to mandate the mandate for you to get paid. So there's like Mr. Destin said, there's a financial motivation here outside of being a large pain in the butt for y'all
So,
to get
right,
it
so I
done.
understand. So in that case, we would, yeah, we certainly couldn't hash that out here tonight, and we would have to take that back and understand cost and everything.
Yeah, so we could do stickers.
How much could a sticker cost me? If you just did a separate bill on a separate price on my bill, so I had to pay for a sticker to identify my can. What could
So that's a good question, and I asked that question myself. And there's going to be about 55 to 5,800 maybe. You know, are we going to put your address on it? Are we going to number them 1 through 5,800, and each person is assigned a specific one? I understand there's specific kinds of material they have to be made out of so that they're durable. You can't go buy them at like Target or something like that. You know, and if it's not the home address, then it would have to be a numbering system that would have to be managed internally. If Mr. Jarvis is going to get a new can, and Jake wrote that down, I saw him do that, or at least a new lid. And his
Lid's
number-
fine.
And his
Lid-
number.
Lid's A-okay.
His
It's a
number
big
came
crack.
off, but if his number came off, he would have to then get a new number, and we'd have to make sure that can't, so I agree that it sounds very simple, but when I started asking the exact same questions, it added up. So I don't know what that costs, don't even have a guess, but we'll have to work through that.
Are you going to entertain a motion then for continuance here?
And that's what I'm
So allow
asking.
these guys time to talk this over?
If they have no objection to that, I would think that's the course to take. Continue to the next meeting, give you all time to talk to your folks to see if that's something that is financially that you want to do. It will solve some problems. But
I know you guys want to get this done. I get that, but this is an issue, we're hearing from constituents, but the reality is, this is a financial problem that can be solved to make it worth y'all's while. And we do need that tool ourselves.
If I could add, please, we need it, but I don't think it's any of our responsibility, okay? In my opinion. And I'm all about a continuance, and it might need to be a substitute motion, but, and I understand that mistakes happen or whatever, but the justification for increases and the discussions at the first reading was more usage and more contamination, things like that. And so to justify reasons of increases to be maybe a reason, not the reason, is about overages and contamination. You can't, it's not fair to do that without knowing whose they are. And the trash can that I sent in was on a vacant lot. There's nothing across the street, nothing on to the left, just one to the right. And so I was all about, I think I told Miss Bell, I didn't think we needed them all across the city. And then a week later, I was like, whose is this? But it, you know, and maybe she put it there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just kidding. No, all I'm saying, Mr. Mayor, the way you say, I just want to be clear that I don't think that we should be paying because it's going to help our code. It will help our code, but Waste Management shouldn't pick up a can if it's not being paid. And there's also no report. I've asked a few times for a report about delinquencies. Either y'all don't give it to us, or I'm not asking the right question. Because I've gotten 2 different reports now and nothing about delinquencies yet from the staff. So I don't know if I'm asking the wrong question, but there's nothing there that I've seen that other council members got too that's for delinquencies.
Yeah, no, I mean, they call it a cutoff report, but, you know, either way.
I've tried.
I know.
And Ray's given me a lot of reports, and I appreciate it. But there's nothing about delinquencies in any report for a year and a half that I've seen. So, but I'll just throw a substitute motion to continue this.
Just to clarify, we're going to continue it to the next regular meeting, is that, okay.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, you got that.
All right.
And that the rationale behind the continuation is to give them an opportunity to analyze how they can do it and come back and tell us.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah, and as far as the cost, I think they can raise enough income that it shouldn't cost. But on the other hand of that equation is if they don't have ability to tell who's paying, neither do we for our mandatory code enforcement that we are supposed to be doing. So you guys look at the issue for us and get a recommendation.
Yeah, I don't think this is a hostile negotiation at this point. I think it really is a self-serving benefit to both the city and Waste Management in the end, even though there's some difficulties associated with it from an operational standpoint. I guess you can take that back to your bosses and have that discussion, and then we'll see y'all in 2 weeks if this motion passes. I do have Mr. Bagby, Mr. Smith's already talked, and I've already talked. I'm closing you and me off because it's time to go. Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just so I'm clear, we have a requirement that every person have a trash can, right? Yeah. We have a requirement. Every single person has to have a trash can. And you've scrubbed the list of the residential trash cans, and there's 202 who either haven't paid or don't have a trash can. They may have a trash can, but they haven't paid, or they don't have a trash can.
Well, or they haven't paid and they're being picked up in error, and we're going to correct that by setting their account
Well,
up.
yeah, they have a can, and we are servicing them weekly.
Okay, so that's 202.
That's-
How many people do not have a single trash can?
So that number is also around 200, and then
Okay.
we have another 200 that are unidentified. You know, like that was actually, looking back on the list, there were like that property, because, well, that property was it was kind of weird case. When we looked at it, the one neighbor that did talk to us, they said there was a recent house fire, or there was a house fire sometime somewhere around there. That can got moved to the pole. That neighbor moved it, so she knew the whole story of it. But either way, we don't know the story, right? You know, you didn't know the story. Nobody, you know, I agree, a number would help, but at the end of the day, so no, there's 200 that are confirmed, probably around 193, and that changes, that do not have service. But what happens with a lot of those too, you look, you know, they go to their work, they take their trash bag to work, they throw it in the dumpster. So there's some scenarios that,
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it's right. I'm
They
just
need to pay.
putting what-
Okay, we have an
I
ordinance that
agree.
says everybody needs to pay. So we ought to
I
have
agree.
everybody pay. We also have an ordinance that says if you're a short-term rental, there's a formula that says how many trash cans you gotta have, right? Do y'all track, I know you track accounts, do you track number of cans per account? And do we scrub that with the short-term rental ordinance?
So when you, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but from everything that I've dealt with, when you apply for your permit, you know, you're told that you have to have 7 cans, let's say. And at that point, you know, you get 7 cans from us. Lately, I don't think it's been,
Can I interrupt you? You get 7 cans, or you have to go
you
order
have
7
to-
cans?
You have to go order.
Okay, all right.
Now-
Staff's
now-
not telling them, they're not ordering.
They're correct. I apologize. I misspoke. I've been up since 2:50 some
Yeah.
this morning, and it's been a long Monday.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. But either way, train of thought here. I apologize.
You register first,
So yes, we used to be able to track it pretty well, but the drivers do call in and report, say, hey, I see, you know, this building's a large building, they got 2 cans here, you know, and we call, and then we'll normally generate an email going, hey, I'm sure 2 cans is not sufficient for this house.
So.
But we don't
because-
see that backside of the permit, what's required.
Right. And that was the conversation I had with Webb and the staff today, was half of this is just a math problem. You know, it really is. You know how many cans are out, right? You know who's not paying. We know, or should know, how many cans should be out, because we know how many residential units we have and how many short-term rentals we have. And we should be communicating with you. Jim Bagby's house has 1, but the one beside him should have 5, and they only have 2. And there should be just 2 people sitting down, one from Waste Management, one from the city, with green eye shades, figuring all this out. Oh, I'm sorry. And we're not even there yet. The whole thing about the addresses, if everybody had a trash can, and everybody was paying for a trash, if I'm paying for a trash can, I'm gonna have a trash can. okay? If we make sure everybody's paying, we don't need to put addresses on them. And the address system, Marcy, I understand what you're saying, okay, but I've been here for a while too, and when we were getting those stickers every quarter that showed that I made my payment to Waste Management, and they were supposed to be on a certain place on the trash can, and I was very, I think at first it started out on the lid, and then it went to one side, it had to be on that side, and I was very meticulous about following the rules, but I can tell you from living in both ends of this town, the west end and the east end, not everybody does that. Not everybody does even close to that. There are people sticking it on the backside, underneath the lid, as like on the mailbox. I'm like, so, I'm okay if we say, Waste Management, what's the front? Because when I pull mine out, the front is whatever's facing the street. So I'm okay, if y'all work out something where y'all eat the first sticker, but then after that, the resident or the city or the whoever, because you're right, there'll be 20 different ways this goes wrong, and it won't be because of y'all or because of us, but I know y'all don't want to be printing 20 different stickers for my next door neighbor and his 7 trash cans he's supposed to have.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to spare you because I got to be up at 4:30 tomorrow morning, and I know you'll be up early. So we're going to wrap this up. We got a motion and a second, but Webb wants to wrap up the discussion, and then we're taking it to a vote. Go ahead, Webb. You guys sit down. You've been saved.
No problem. Mr. Bagby actually said a lot of the things I wanted to say, but we're happy to work with Waste Management and look at the current processes and any future processes, and sharing of information is something that we've been working on, and we can maybe do a little bit better job, and we'll look at those processes and bring that back to council.
Okay, let's take a vote. Do you need to report, everybody knows what the motion was? Continuance till next week, right? Let's go. Keep pressing. Which one is it? Battery. Nope, it don't work.
I voted yes. Do a roll call.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Destin. Mr. Bagby. Miss Abear. and
Yes.
Okay. Ayes have it, so moved. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And Kyle and Webb and staff will bring us something back. On to our next public hearing. Take it away, sir.
All right, next we got item 5B. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2211 CN, an ordinance of the city of Destin, Florida relating to the lease of certain real property owned by the city, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for city council approval of the second amendment to reclaimed water lease for lease of property located at 4200 Indian Bayou Trail, Destin, Florida, to Destin Water Users, Inc., providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
And seeing how it's a public hearing, I'll open this up for public comment at this time. Does anyone have anything to say about the first reading of ordinance 22-11-CN? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2211C on first reading and direct staff to advertise for second reading.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Well, vote is unanimous, so moved. Kyle? Hey, clear, Ray, clear me, please. Ray, clear me, please.
All right. Next, we've got item 5C. This is Bowman Consulting on behalf of Eris Destin Retail LC, requesting approval of conditional use 2225 CU. If I could get any member of staff and also the applicant, if you're here, to stand and please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth? All right. Thank you. And then, starting with Kevin, we'll just see if there's been any ex parte communication.
There, none.
No communications.
No communication?
None.
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 All right, so we'll go down to Kim or the applicant, whoever's presenting first. Applicant, if you're available and ready, go ahead and present.
All right, Ryan McBee with Bowman Consulting. We are looking for a conditional use approval for a parking lot to be adjacent to the previously approved Chick-fil-A on US 98. Employee parking. Yes.
I'd like to make that motion.
We got to have the public comment portion of it yet. So is, any questions on this aspect? You know, any questions, you can sit down. Staff, do you have any comments?
Unless the council has questions.
We don't have any questions. Okay, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open up the public comment portion of this public hearing. Nobody wants to talk, so I'm going to close it, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion. I move that the city council approve conditional use 2225 CU with the following condition: the only proposed parking lot shall be utilized by staff and customers of Chick-fil-A only.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All against? Vote. Vote is unanimous. So moved. Thank you, sir. Thank you for toughing that out. All right, Kyle.
All right, last ordinance, this is item 5D. This is the first reading of ordinance number 109.11, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendment of ordinance 109 as amended, personnel rules and regulations, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for amendment to section 40, holidays, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is also a public hearing.
And I will open up the public comment portion of this public hearing at this time. Anyone wants to come up? Seeing none, that portion of the hearing is closed, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion. I move to approve ordinance 109.11 on first reading and direct city staff to advertise the ordinance for second reading.
Motion and a second. No comments? Seeing none? Vote is unanimous, so moved. Mr. Braden.
Thanks, Mayor. Got one question for our finance director. Last council meeting, I made a comment about we were budgeting $40,000 a year for repair and replacement, and got laughed at by one of my council members because I was wrong, I guess, and now it's several $1 million. Can we repair and replace that the city was budgeting or putting back like $40,000 a year for that, and now it's changed from like several million. Is that a true statement, Crystal, or not?
Yes, sir, that's true.
Thank you very much. Just want to make that clear. Windows at the community center. We supposed to put that back out for bid, or trying to get that done several months ago. Where's that at?
Yes, sir, the bid package is ready. I'm going to be getting with Webb in the morning and Ray to advertise. It's ready.
Okay, thank you so much. I got the code reports that Ray sent me, but I can't make heads or tails of them. Someone need to meet with staff on that. We can probably get a hard copy on it. And I'd like to sit down with Webb or somebody, and maybe our code officer, our new director. That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
None.
Mr. Destin. Mr. Bagby.
Two quick things. City manager eval, please put that under my name for the next council meeting. I did my mid-year evaluation with the city manager, and it's up to us to put in the budget, whatever we're going to pay him for next year. So if we think that he ought to get something, so you can put that under my name. And then we have not been able to find the derelict vessel spreadsheet. So I want somebody to contact FWC and get all the decision points. There's about 6 or 7 of them. I want to know the length of time, and I want somebody to send me that information, please. Thank you. Yeah, Webb. Was that you?
Got it.
I had some thoughts on the Morgan Sports Center baseball field, but I'm going to let Mr. Schmidt talk about that since it's under his name.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to just, with Mr. Buckingham earlier, you know, I wanted to make sure, the public record, that I'm not trying to disrespect Mr. Buckingham or anything. I just want to make sure we're following certain processes and that everybody's getting a fair shot towards major decisions, and we have these continuing contracts that we hire people, and so no disrespect to Mr. Buckingham and any of that, and that's all I want to say about that. I was hoping that if we could, we get a code report, and Mr. Braden mentioned something, but the last one that we got, we've only gotten one, I think, so far since that motion was made, but can we start putting on that code report response code responses and like proactive code responses? Am I saying that correctly? Is that a possibility, Webb?
Yeah, I think it is. It's reactive and proactive, and we'll have to dig into that and see how they are recording that. But I know that's been some discussions in the past.
Right, lots of discussions, and so if that could be added to that report that we're going to hopefully get more regularly, I think that would be a great addition to that report.
Got a new director, so good timing.
Right. I have Morgan Sports Center. I'm sorry, Mr. Warnett, I didn't have much to say about it, but I'm glad you're here with us anyways. But it's my understanding, I believe, that we're going to be hearing at the next council meeting kind of either a presentation or a decision or something. Is that a fair understanding from y'all's end?
Yes. We're working with the high school right now to prepare a report. We have, we're still waiting on some specs of what needs to happen at Morgan's, but we will have that all. We have a meeting next week, or this week, I'm sorry, this week with the high school and also with the Parks and Rec Committee. So we'll have all that accumulated and be able to present that to you on August 15th.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Next, helicopter usage and safety. I'll try not to go too long. I've had a lot of emails and calls, and I've also noticed it as well. There's different activity going on with helicopters than has been in the past. And lots of questions about that activity. So I would just like to know more about what can and can't be done there. It's not in the city of Destin, and I know that. Just want to put that on the record. But what I do want to do is I'd like to make a motion to direct our land use attorney to get with county staff to provide to us the current permitted uses and future allowable usages at that property.
Second.
I'd like to put a motion, if I could. That's why I did it, but if I could.
You did. Got a motion?
And a second.
All in favor? Done. Vote is unanimous. What's next?
Sure. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
My turn. To pile on to Kevin, Ms. Firth, when you do your report on the ball field, give us the pluses and minuses along with it, not just costs and that kind of stuff, but just the benefits, net benefits, and net negatives, just so, for information not only for the council, but for the community.
Yes.
Just so we can weigh it all out.
Yes, we're working on all the facts, pros and cons of program scheduling and, you know,
Yeah, without emotion.
Correct.
We're going to get enough of that as it is.
Well, Mr. Mayor, can I, as long as we're asking her to add stuff in there, I'd like to know, because my understanding was it was just about a baseball field, but we actually provide soccer field for the high school. We provide a softball field for the high school. I want to know everything we're doing for the high school in that thing, because, you know,
Yeah,
once
just-
you add it all up,
Right,
it's, You know,
But-
those people say the city's not doing anything. I think we're more than.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that it's called Destin High School, and most of all those people that go there live in Destin. So it's not like that high school.
I asked if we could talk about it.
It's our high school.
And here we are.
There we are.
Thought you were done. You have to wake up in the morning and go fishing.
I know. I just can't shut up sometimes when it comes to sports. But I just want to remind everyone that that high school is not this satellite out there, even though it might not be in Destin city limits. It's our kids, it's our residents that their kids are going there, and they pay taxes too. So
And we love our high school.
we love our high school. I love that high school. I support it 100%. Land use attorney, what you got?
I think I just wanted to let you all know that we are going to ask you to do one more executive session in the Fleet case. Kyle will go ahead and make that formal announcement after this, but I think we're thinking August 15th, if that works for you all, right before the regular council
And
meeting.
that's before the mediation
The
date.
mediation has been scheduled for August 29th, and then we have a judge assigned, if you didn't see my email, in Escambia County, and a trial date of November 29th and 30th. So assuming nothing gets resolved at mediation, we would be in trial at the end of November.
Now, most likely, we'll have this executive session. If mediation, however that turns out, we'll have another executive
have another.
session prior to going to trial or settling.
Yeah, because anything, if the mediation produced anything at all, it would be subject to council approval, so.
Anything else?
No.
Kyle?
Let me just do this formally. Pursuant to Section 286.011.8 Florida statutes, I would request that the City Council set an executive session for August 15th at 5:30 in these chambers for the case of the Destin Fishing Fleet, Inc. versus City of Destin, Okaloosa County Court Case Number 2019 CA 000-425F. The people in attendance will be all council members, the mayor, the city manager, city attorney, city land use attorney, and also city insurance defense counsel, Bill Warner and Eric Krebs. And with that, I'd ask that you set that by motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote. Vote unanimous. Kyle, you have your approval. Anything else, sir?
Nothing else.
Okay, last time, public comments. Come on up. You get 2 minutes and 41 seconds because I let you go over.
I'm going to take 60 seconds.
Go ahead.
Two items in
You
reference.
can have 3 minutes.
In reference to the helicopter, I wanted to mention that I have seen this summer where they've had 2 to 3 helicopters on that pad, and it's my understanding that's called hot boxing the pad, and I do not think that that's allowed. I don't want to get in the middle of that. I just know that that's what I have witnessed. The last thing I wanted to say, and I want all of you to hear from me, I am committed to helping Code Compliance Department to become an effective and efficient code compliance department for this city. We deserve it. We're a great city, and we need to make sure that we show ourselves as a great city through effective and efficient code compliance. So I accept all your help in helping me. Thank you. Numbers on trash cans.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? All right. Meeting adjourned.